Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very thrilled to welcome Andrew Campbell back to the podcast today to talk about Charlotte's Web, the 1973 animated version, which came out on March 1st of 1973. How are we doing, Andrew?
We're doing just okay today.
Just okay. Well, thanks for being on here to talk about, a pretty famous movie from 73. Of all the films we're going to talk about this year, I would say a lot of people are probably fairly familiar with this because the 1952 novel is still to this day super popular. And there haven't been too many adaptations of this. The other famous one is the 2006 kind of half live action, half animated from 06, which I have never seen, by the way.
Oh, I have seen that one. I've definitely seen that one. And after watching, the original 1973 the other day, which I had seen this original one before. It's been a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I, of course, remember the Dakota Fanning one is what I mostly remember it for. Because Dakota Fanning was like
Fanning. Yep.
She was just in everything. If there was a kid, if there was a little girl involved, she was it.
Yeah.
And I was looking through the IMDb, the cast of the 2006 one. And oh my
Oprah.
gosh, the cast of that. Oh my gosh.
Isn't Oprah in it?
Yeah, Oprah plays the goose.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts plays Charlotte. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
So many amazing actors you can't remember.
So many amazing people. I can't. He's the big eyes. He older guy, big eyes.
Steve Buscemi.
Yes,
so that's so sad that you said big eyes, and my brain went Steve Buscemi.
Yes,
that's hilarious.
I mean, it's just a fine feature. And he plays Templeton, which is perfect because when we were watching it, my roommate and I watched the 1973 Charlotte's Web yesterday, and we were looking at the cast and we're kind of comparing the voices of like, oh, would that be a good person for today? Or for that 2006 version, and we both were like, "Oh, Steve Buscemi's perfect for this." I mean, like even the old one, the 73 Templeton voice sounds like Steve Buscemi. Like we were like that. Like you could say it was Steve Buscemi in 1973, and I would believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have seen the 73 version at some point in my childhood, but I didn't remember much of it. If I did. And so I didn't really have anything to compare this movie to. I wasn't thinking about the 06 version while watching it. So that I think made it kind of nice. I'm not comparing the voices or the different scenes that are there. But I would say still to this day, I feel like more people appreciate the animated film from the 70s than they do the version we got in 06. I don't think that movie's had a lot of staying power throughout the last 16, 17 years. I don't hear anyone ever talk about it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. I think it's I always picture the cartoon first. I mean, not even that I even watched. It was never like my favorite movie growing up, but I always remember the way Charlotte looks in the animated one.
That felt familiar too. I felt like I'd seen that before.
And I'm trying to think. I may have to look it up later. I swear, maybe it was the 2006 version where when she has her babies, there's three that stay. One of them had blonde hair. That's all I remember. Why do I think one had blonde hair? Unless maybe I know I did a book report on Charlotte's Web in like second grade.
You didn't bring that to share with us?
And maybe I wish I had it. I was a mess in second grade. You don't want that. I was so far behind in school. I'm surprised I could even read that book. But I remember there was a blonde. It was a blonde-haired spider, and I was like, "That's bizarre." I don't know. I think maybe I had done that. Maybe that's my memory with that. Is that I gave each of them different colored hair to make them different. I'm an artist. What can I say?
Well, thanks for being here, Andrew. To go from Silent Night, Bloody Night to Charlotte's Web, it's quite a unique pairing of films on Film at 50, I would say.
It is, but it's honestly so fitting because a lot of my friends make fun of me because I love animated movies. I really love animated movies, and the last movie I saw in theaters was Puss in Boots.
I've heard great things.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think I would like to watch it again and focus on the animation style instead. I mean, I love the animation style; that was really good, and it was very different. but because their views are so high, I was like, oh, I bet the story's really cool. And I was like, well, the story's actually not that great. I mean, it's fine, it's entertaining enough.
Hmm.
Uh, but the animation style is very good. It's very like anime. Like the fighting sequences are really cool, and
Okay.
the bad guy, and he's scary. Like he's really creepy. And I saw it in 3D with my nieces, and I was just like, this
Oh,
is pretty intense, guys. Like I don't know, like my little 4-year-old, she's just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is a lot. I don't want to give you guys nightmares, but they handled it pretty well.
that's great. Yeah, there's some really great animated movies now year to year that are for everybody. It doesn't have you don't have
Hmm.
to be watching it with like a little one.
Yeah.
Pixar and a lot
Oh,
of stuff
yeah.
that Disney does, and then all of these, some of these smaller studios that put out animated films that maybe get into the Oscar category, best animated feature. There's always at least one or two great discoveries every year. So
Absolutely.
animation is still very much alive and evolving, and so much great work happening in that genre. And I love animated films of yesteryear. I love the old school stuff too, even the
Yeah,
stuff outside of Disney. Like I just every decade, like animation looks kind of different, and even
it
sometimes like
does.
back to back, if you look at Sleeping Beauty in 59, which is like widescreen and lush and pristine and all the backgrounds, and it's just insane. And then 2 years later, because Sleeping Beauty didn't do enormously well, and so they had to lower their budget, 101 Dalmatians from 61 has such a unique look to it that
It
looks like
does.
nothing like Sleeping Beauty, but it
It
so
does.
fits that story for 101 Dalmatians. Like I couldn't see 101 Dalmatians in the style of Sleeping Beauty. Like it's just perfect for
Yes.
each movie. And so when
It's
you
funny
look
you
at the evolution of animation throughout the decades, it's really interesting.
I love that you brought that up because actually the mug I'm drinking out of right now, I'm using because the animate the it
Oh,
reminds me of the one around Dalmatians
the
animation.
house, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I love the pencil drawing look of it.
Hmm.
It's very sketchy. Because the I was gonna say 101 Dalmatians. I love the animation for that movie. It's so I just love that style. That very like it's very it looks very very hand drawn, but not in like the um. It looks like a drawing, not a painting, which I
Yeah.
think how you like mentioned with Sleeping Beauty. Um, and I always loved it. And I actually watched it not that long ago again, just to like look at the animation. I was just like, oh,
Hmm.
I still love it. Like if I remember, I think I remember like looking kind of watercolory as well. Um, but that style of animation is so unique, and you don't see that anymore, unfortunately. A lot,
Yeah.
you know the digital animation, but going back, I like Puss in Boots. What I think that was really cool was that they had like very visible brush strokes on the characters, and like you can tell it's like a very painted style mixed with the 3D the digital animation.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to see this franchise that we started off awfully with Shrek, uh and you know the animation's been very consistent. They've
Hmm.
developed and made it look better, but it's always been this exact same style. And now this is still the same story, still the same I guess storyline, I guess. It's Shrek and all that stuff art that has happened. Like they mentioned that stuff before, but now the animation style is very, very different looking. And
Okay.
I think that's kind of cool. And I mean, spoiler alert, I think they're making another Shrek movie based on on the ending of this one.
Oh, is Shrek the
And
character in it? Like, does he show up?
so
Oh.
so Shrek is in they have a quick little flashbacks of Shrek.
Oh, okay.
Uh you don't really see anything, but they remind you of Shrek twice, and then the ending, it's very like, oh, is Shrek gonna like they're gonna do this again? So I'm interested to see is if they do make another Shrek movie, which is it's been rumored for a long time. I'm a huge Shrek fan. Shrek
Yeah.
2 is my favorite anime movie of all time. Um, and I'm interested to see if they're gonna go with this new style of animation they did with Puss in Boots because it's very
Hmm.
different than what Shrek was. So whenever the movie, I mean, if it comes out, knock on wood, I hope it does. I'm interested to see the animation style they choose for it because I don't know, they
Wasn't
might change it up.
wasn't the fourth Shrek movie called The Final Chapter? Or am I making that up?
That was for Forever After.
Oh, Forever After. Okay.
Forever After, yes,
Because I was like, well, I
yes.
guess they could call it Shrek: A New Beginning, and we could have a tie into Jason Voorhees, but
Well, they said it was gonna be like a reboot, which I really hope they don't do. I don't want. It's
Shrek
not. It
again.
hasn't been like honestly. I was like you can't replace the voice actors again, and you like I don't know. It hasn't been long enough for that.
Yeah.
And so I think they just need to. I mean, I'm sure Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy and all them would do it. And like Cameron Diaz, I'm sure would come out of retirement to do it again too. Even though
Yeah.
I'm sure she's not retired, but she
No,
said she was, and
she's
now she's
acting
back.
again. Did you know she's acting in a new movie with Jamie Foxx for Netflix? Like
Yes,
I think they
I've heard about
wrapped.
that.
I think it's done. That's coming
Yes.
later this year or early next year. But
Well, we'll get her back out for sure.
yeah, so that's interesting. You say Shrek 2 is your favorite. That's a really fun one.
It
I mean,
is.
the computer animation in the last 10 and 15 years is just so sophisticated. It looks amazing. But I still have a deep love for the old school animated films where every frame is hand drawn. Like you really feel that passion, that love, and you know that every shot in the movie is very well planned out, and there's nothing extra that doesn't need to be there. It's like we're going to tell this story very specifically because it's going to take us for frickin' ever to animate every 5 seconds of the movie. So, but like you watch some of that old stuff and you know, like everything is hand drawn. It's really extraordinary work that can't ever really be replicated today.
Yeah, and I think what was it? How many frames was it to make one scene in Little Mermaid? Like 1 second in Little
Like
Mermaid
one
is
second.
like 1 second in the Little Mermaid film is actually like 15 drawings or something like that. I forget what they had said. I just remember that one specifically was a very uh, mind blowing fact of like
Yeah.
how difficult that movie was to animate. Because yeah, I totally agree. I think what's funny is that like those 2D drawings are so much more rewatchable than I think the 3D animation ones are. Because I mean, I grew up on, of course, I think the what we consider the classic Disney movies for like, I guess the '90s. Aladdin. I mean, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Mulan. Mulan is my favorite. I love Mulan, the
The
cartoon one. That's my
98.
favorite Disney. Yes, I love that movie. And I do like the style of it's really good too. And Hercules was just on as well, and I was watching that, and the animation style of that was super different. It was very
Yeah.
like Ito was very influenced on like Greek mythology, like the drawings of all that, and yeah, I find myself able to be watching those dozens of times. But then like, I mean, I love Frozen. I enjoy it. I don't people hit you know throw crap at Frozen all the time. I love that movie, but I will not watch that. I can't rewatch that 1,000 times. Like I can rewatch Mulan tons and tons of times, but Moana and Frozen, I love those movies, but it's not as rewatchable to me.
Yeah, hand-drawn animation in the 90s is beautiful. Like when you look
It
at
is.
the evolution from The Little Mermaid in 89 to like even The Lion King 5 years later, like you compare the animation of those two movies and it's amazing how much we've evolved by the time we get to The Lion King. And if hand-drawn animation had continued into the 2000s, 2010s, I think it would look unbelievable today. But the success of Toy Story in 95, it just slowly started shifting things. And which makes sense because I mean the time it takes to hand draw animation is, I mean it's takes a long time. I remember when I was a kid, I was always like my mind was blown when like Beauty and the Beast comes out in November of 91 and then November of 92 we have Aladdin. I'm like, wow, they did that in 1 year. And it wasn't until later I'm like, oh, they're working on multiple films for many years. Like it took me a few years to get that. Because I was like, wow, they really pumped that out really quickly. But you're too young to have seen those in the theater, right?
Yeah, I did not.
Those were extraordinary experiences when I was a kid to see.
Oh, I bet.
Like my first animated movie in a theater that I remember was The Little Mermaid. I would have been 5 when that came out. And then to be like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, while this second golden age of animation, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King was really special. That was, I mean, you knew that these were specifically great animated films that can't be easily replicated. So
Oh yeah.
I still think those are three of the best, four of the best. Those four movies I just mentioned.
Oh yeah. I know. I totally agree. And you know which one I always think is super underrated? Because you mentioned Little Mermaid, which is my that was the first movie my sister ever saw in theaters when she was little.
Okay.
And then the Oliver and Company
That was the
was
year
one.
before.
So she well maybe I guess Oliver and Company would have been first because she saw Oliver and Company with I think my grandmother when my brother was being born. They're like, oh, we need she need to watch, entertainer, and it took her to go see Oliver and Company, which Oliver and Company is a fantastic movie as well. The food, also the food in the hand drawn movies, they always look
Oh
so
yeah.
delicious, and it's become like a trend on TikTok. I think even I made a TikTok about it, about just how delicious hand drawn food looks, and especially in
Yeah.
in Oliver and Company, the stuff that she makes that looks like almost it looks like cookie dough and whipped cream all together. It just oh my gosh, it looks delicious. And I actually rewatched Aristocats recently. I
Aristocats.
mean,
Yeah.
like I haven't seen that one forever. And the style of that's really good too. The hand it's kind of very
Kind of
similar to
similar to 101 Dalmatians, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the food they had in that, I'm like, this looks delicious. They don't do that anymore. Food doesn't look as delicious as it does. Hand drawn, I think animated like I know everyone talks about the Goofy movie, the pizza they eat. Oh my god, it looks so good.
So good. You just want to reach through the screen and eat that animated pizza.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mentioning the Aristocats is a good transition into this period in animation because that's around the time of Charlotte's Web. One of our first episodes of Film at 50 at the end of 2020 was about the Aristocats. That came out in December of 1970. So that was our first animated film we talked about. I had Scott Gardner from podcast The Ride on for that episode. It's a really good one if you go in the archives, and talking about kind of Disney's really weak period at that time for live action and animated filmmaking. Like, I love my Disney movies. If you go on Disney Plus, you can watch everything really going back to the 1930s and even the late 20s. And one of their worst periods of movies is the 70s. Like you get the occasional bed knobs and broomsticks, which is great, but most of their fare is not so great. We just talked about Snowball Express a few weeks ago. That was their Christmas release of 72. And it's okay, but it's pretty stupid. It's not like there's nothing to it. And so animation, and yeah, most people haven't. Animation in this period, it's not really considered like a golden age or anything.
Yeah.
Like, so in the 70s by Disney, we get the Aristocats in 1970, we get Robin Hood in 1973. So we're talking that later this year. I think that'll be in November, which I'm excited to get to. That's a pretty solid film. And then 1977, we get The Rescuers, which they're all three of those are good.
Those are pretty good.
But they're not like, I think most people don't consider those three at like the top. It's really the live action stuff that's bad. But animation at this time, there's not much. So when you get a movie like Charlotte's Web in the midst of all of this, it's not like kids at this time are getting a new animated movie in theaters every 1 to 2 months. The way I feel like they get it now, I feel like now every, what would we say? Every 3 months now, we get something animated in the theater.
Yeah.
Around that.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, I think like one a year was like they'd maybe get. I mean, Disney was making one every 3 to 4 years. And then there might have been a couple other studios putting out some things. This is a rare kind of non-Disney theatrical animated movie at the time, Charlotte's Web in 73. This is the beginning of the year. Robin Hood comes out at the end of the year.
I remember I always loved Robin Hood, and I remember. And then when did Jungle Book come out? That was
Jungle Book is 1967.
I knew you know the date.
So that I know it's kind of scary. I know.
I love it. It's fascinating. I love
it. I could probably go through every Disney animated film from Snow White to now and tell you the year that they'll come out. Wow. Like, I know it all. It's just all up there. It's all just a waste of. But I get to use it here, so that's good. That's exactly, part. Yeah. That was like 20% of the reason to do the podcast. I was like, I've got all this film knowledge that goes to nothing. Like, let's use it for something. But so yeah, I mean, we talked about it on the Aristocats episode. We talked about a little bit on some of the live action stuff. like a $1 Million Duck. We talked about that terrible movie in 2021. But so Walt Disney dies at the end of 66. I believe it's December of 66. And then his last real kind of handprint was on The Jungle Book. Like he had like he had played a role in that movie for at least the first half of its development, and they were working on it obviously by the end of 66. But then it's like, and then the quality kind of tapers off as soon as Walt Disney is dead. Like, and then it's like they're like kind of lost. Like, what do we do? like how do we make these movies? And so they were still making good stuff, but it wasn't quite at the high level of what Disney himself was overseeing. And so that's why The Jungle Book, for I think a lot of people, is kind of the last entry of that golden age from like the late 30s to the late 60s. Like so many great movies that animated movies that Disney put out in those 30 years. And for most people, I think that golden age is between Snow White in 37 and Jungle Book in 67. And then the next golden age begins with The Little Mermaid in 89. So there's like a 22-year gap of some decent stuff, but nothing that's at the level of some of these other things.
Yeah. And then you get, 10 years of pure perfect movies, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the 90s. I mean, I'm a huge defender of some of the lesser like I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame from 96. I think that's a great movie. And that's nobody talks 5. About that.
No, and it's funny. You just we were just watching clips of it, because Out There, I think, is one of the like unbelievable songs.
Great song.
And I
great
love
songs
Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's so good, and I think the movie's so dark. And I remember Tumblr gives a lot of love to Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I've always loved that movie, and because it's such a different story than what they typically go with. It's not a Prince Charming and all that stuff and princesses. It's very dark about a guy who's being abused by a super religious man, and it's even like that's, and there's like weird like sexual stuff in a a love triangle and all. It's such a different story, and the music is so intense. The music makes the entire movie. And that's definitely top 5 for me. I love Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Beautiful animation in that movie.
It is. It's so
insanely
beautiful.
Well drawn. Like that's like maybe the peak of like their hand drawn animation is Hunchback. It just looks extraordinary. And then obviously Mulan and Hercules and Tarzan also look great. But then they start kind of putting their attention on computer animation after Hunchback. And so it does taper off a little bit. But
and then they brought it back with Princess and the Frog, went back to the hand drawn.
I still remember that. I still remember in like 2007 when they announced that Princess and the Frog was going to be hand drawn animation, and I was like, awesome. Okay, so we'll kind of go back and forth. We'll do a couple like computer animated, but they'll still keep the hand drawn alive, and that movie looks also fantastic. And that was their last one, right?
Love that movie. That I think it is. Yeah,
it underperformed. Princess and the Frog underperforms in 2009. I remember I saw it opening weekend with my family, and we all loved it, and it was great. And then I saw Tangled was going to be computer animation. I was like, okay, we're going to do a couple. And then that was it's just all been computer animation ever since.
Yes, and I think, oh my gosh, Princess and the Frog I watched a few years ago, and Ray the Firefly has become my favorite anime character of all time. I loved him, and I had a meltdown when he dies. He's about, oh my, I didn't expect it.
You're like an adult man at this point, breaking down.
I was 20. Oh my gosh, I was like what 24, I think. And I was watching with my niece, and I was like, "This movie's so." And then like Ray the Firefly comes in, I was like, "Oh my god, he's hilarious! And he's so sweet, and he owes them nothing, but he's gonna go take care of them and help them out." And then my niece left, and I was like, "I'm finishing this movie." And then he got stepped on, and
tears burst out of the eye sockets.
And it's real. I have this. I saved the photos in my phone because I was Snapchatting at the time, and I was just like watching Princess and the Frog for the first time, and I was like, "Oh my god, Ray the Firefly is the best. I love him." And then that happened, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And then it's just a thread of me just like freaking out. And then when he becomes a freaking star in the sky next to Evangeline, I was bawling. I was so upset and happy. Like I was crying happy, but I was also really sad that he died.
Hmm.
But I adore that character. He was so fun.
Did you
Oh.
cry at all during Charlotte's Web last night?
No, I did not.
No
I
tears?
could see why. On it, Wilbur. I mean, we'll get into it. Wilbur drove me crazy. I did not like
Wilbur
that
the
pig.
pig
Uh,
got on your nerves?
oh, cannot stand him. I'm sorry, but I couldn't. Uh,
Was it the
he was.
voice or just the
It was a combination of the
decisions
voices.
made?
He was just so whiny and selfish, and I did not like
I
it.
want my
Uh,
friend.
I'm like he wouldn't
I'm
stop
lonely.
crying. Like it. Oh, it drove me up a wall. And although Charlotte is I was just like, I feel like if gays watch this movie, they would just love that. Charlotte is so like sassy and quick,
She's
and
the
she's just like, shut
homosexual
up, like.
character.
I mean, she is like she's a mother, is what they would say. Because she, I was just like, gosh, she's so like, uh, just takes charge and it's like, shut up, and using these words are so like, uh, as a kid, I didn't understand. I remember reading the book as a kid, and there were so many words, and I was like, what do these words mean? Like, I didn't know what humble meant, and then radiant, and I was just like, what does that mean? I was just like, and of course, those are all the words. In salutations, when she said
Mm.
salutations, I instantly had a flashback. I was like, oh my god, I remember being so confused by that word. Um, and oh my god, I as an adult, I'm just like, Charlotte slays. She's great.
So you're watching this movie and Wilbur was getting on your nerves and you're just
Yes,
waiting for like maybe Charlotte will weave a new web of Wilbur.
yes, I
And
was
just sucking
waiting
his
for it.
blood.
I would have done it after the. Yeah, I was not a fan of him, but the voice of him, when my roommate and I were watching it, as soon as we heard the voice, we're like, that is not a 6 week old pig. That is a grown man who's a smoker. That is not a child.
Yeah, Henry Gibson, who was born in
Yes.
1935, voices Wilbur. Henry Gibson, who I just seeing him on IMDb, that face looks so familiar. Oh, he's in Magnolia. That's the face I know. That's the movie I know him from.
Okay. And so I know him from Luck of the Irish, was the Disney Channel movie,
Oh, okay.
um, which made me think of Debbie Reynolds because she was in Halloween Town.
Halloween.
And I was like, oh, they both went to Disney movies. I mean, two very beloved Disney movies. I don't know who he was at that time, um, obviously, but I really loved him in Luck of the Irish. He just plays the grandfather who's a leprechaun, because the whole family are leprechauns, and he's finding out the main characters find out that he's a leprechaun, and uh, like their
Yeah.
luck is being stolen, I think is what the plot was. And yeah, Henry Gibson played his grandfather, and he was a great character, and I loved him. He was great in the movie.
Yeah.
So I liked seeing him. When I found out it was him, I was like, okay, I can enjoy it a little bit more because I love that actor. I have good memories with him. Uh, and I love Debbie Reynolds. So listening to her voice, I was like, there's
Oh yeah, she fits into that role well. Some
oh,
actors, when I
perfect,
hear
yeah.
their voice in an animated movie, I can only picture that. But like Debbie Reynolds, I know her face well. I've seen a lot of her stuff, and she just kind of became Charlotte. I didn't really think of Debbie Reynolds while I watched it.
I agree. Yeah, I think it worked very, very well. Um, yeah, because I agree. I think I think like the 2006 live action. I would, if I hear a goose that sounds like Oprah or it is Oprah, I'm like, that's Oprah. Like, I'm sorry, like that's all it is.
She didn't
You
change her
can't.
voice at all. She just sounded like
I don't
herself.
think so. Not that I remember, but I was like, yeah, that's too much.
So instead of watching the '06 Charlotte's Web, I'd be more interested in watching a short documentary about the process of casting Oprah in the movie.
Oh yes,
Like
I wonder how
I
difficult it
want the
was.
phone call. I want like her in bed or something, like getting a text or phone call from her assistant, or her agent. And it's like, so you've been offered the role of the goose. Is that who she played?
Yes, the
The
goose was
role
a
of the
stutter.
goose in Charlotte's Web. And I mean, think about in '06, '05, like she was a busy woman. Like she had her show at the
Oh my
time.
god, yeah.
She was busy with a capital B, that she took the time to say, you know what, I'm going to do this.
I'm gonna be a
And the
goose with a
reasons
horrible
why.
stutter. Yep.
That's funny to me.
Oh
But
yeah.
So when it comes to Charlotte's Web from 73, I mean, this wasn't surprising to me, but doing my research, this is not a movie that just came to be very quickly. Like, this was a movie that took about 6 years to get made. Like, it was in 67 that the idea was first floated that they wanted to do it. A couple of animators, John and Faith Hubley, were interested in purchasing the film rights to the 1952 novel in the hopes of making a feature-length animated movie. So, but when you do this kind of thing, you have to get the rights from the author. You can't just make the movie. Like, you have to go to E.B. White and say, we'd like to make this into an animated film. And I have a couple stories about E.B. White throughout this process. He was hesitant. He was like, do I want my cherished novel from the early 50s to become an animated movie? Like, that could go in a lot of different directions. And so, but he liked these two animators. He decided, even after, I guess, Disney came to him before, and he said no.
Yes.
Which I found interesting. I found interesting that Disney would have come to him. He says no, but then he says yes to these two animators who will be producing the movie at a different studio. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because I was watching a little, I think a little 12-minute, I guess not documentary, but a little special on 1973 Charlotte's Web. And,
okay.
They talk about Disney a lot because, and I was really confused. I was like, because Paramount produced it, right?
It's Paramount.
And
Hanna-Barbera.
Like, and they talk about and they talk about Disney so much, and I was like, why are they talking about Disney so much in this when they didn't even produce it? But then I saw that like they had come to them, and of course the Sherman brothers were, because of Mary Poppins,
and known for Disney.
They were, and
they did the songs for Mary Poppins and The Jungle Book, both Disney. So that would have made sense that they would have maybe worked on this movie at Disney. I want to know what the thinking was from E.B. White to say no to Disney, but yes to these two kind of unproven animators in terms of like their film work. Like, as I read, like those two were not able to get the movie financed after getting the blessing and the rights from E.B. White. Like, why go with these untested people instead of Disney, which that will be a movie everybody sees? Kind of interesting.
Yeah. They were just very nice, I guess.
They were just very nice. They must have charmed him, wined, and dined.
I mean, and I think something I was trying to figure out was like, God, the animation style is so old looking to me. Like older than 1973. And they mentioned that in the little thing I watched about how they went with a very authentic older style.
Yeah.
And because I remember I was like, Mary Poppins came out in 1964, right?
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I got one. Thank you. And I remember I was just like, the animation, they did in that movie is, beautiful, and I love it, and it's so colorful and bright. And then like this one is very dark and very old. And I was just like, this came out like several years after. Like I was like, this is bizarre. The animation style is so different.
Well, it kind of fits the dark themes, right? I mean, the movie opens. After the opening narration, we get basically like we're at this farm and there's this runt. There's this runt in the litter, and the father is going to kill it. And the daughter runs out like, no, Dad, don't. This is the worst day of my life. It's so like over dramatic. I love it.
It's so dramatic.
And he's like, well, okay, then you take the pig and you raise it. It's like, but it's like in the opening minutes, it's like we're treated to this idea that he's going to like chop the pig in half or something with his axe. And it's like,
it's violent.
Like, that's kind of that's kind of a dark opening to this movie.
It is a very dark opening. And I think you're right. I think it can't be bright and colorful. I mean, the whole movie is about life and death and the circle of life. And
which so many animated films are about. Lion King's about that. I mean, it's a part of a lot of those Disney films that are usually not a big part of like adult live action movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's the kid movies where we discuss life and death.
Exactly. I mean, God teaches life lessons early.
One of my favorite things in the whole movie is Charlotte just saying, Wilbur's, crying as he does. He's like crying in every scene. And he's like, what are you like? She's like, well, I'm about to die soon. And he's like, no, don't go. And she's like, and I love just her like well, this is how it works. We're born, we live for a little while, and then we go away. And it's like,
Yes.
that's a just very simple way of putting the life experience for all of us. That is kind of what happens.
Yeah.
We're here for a little
And
while and then we leave. And it's as if we
yep.
weren't here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte.
I mean, that's why I like her so much, because she's just like straightforward. And even when he was crying like a little baby, like honestly, like, he really frustrated
There's
me.
a lot of
Got really
tears
upset.
from
He was,
Wilbur.
and she was just like, Wilbur, I have no time for hysterics. And also like, yes, like, thank you. You don't have time for him to cry the entire time, and he's doing you a favor. And what did Wilbur do for her? Nothing.
When she's talking about like how she drinks blood, like that's her diet, and it just keeps cutting to Wilbur. He's like, that's disgusting.
And she's like, oh, I guess I'll eat, I'll eat when you're sleepy. And I'm like, girl, you don't have to do that. Make him grow up.
So anyway, those two animators, they couldn't finance the movie. So the project languished for like 3 or 4 years, didn't happen. And then in June of 1971, Sagittarius Productions signed a 2-picture production deal with Hanna-Barbera, which at the time was mostly known for TV, like the Flintstones, right? But they wanted to make some theatrical movies. And they decided in that 2-picture deal, one of the 2 films would be Charlotte's Web. Around that same time, Joe Barbera visited E.B. White at his residence in Maine, in which the author highlighted parts of the book he did not want changed in the movie. And then there were parts he decided were subject to discussion. I love the idea that they're making this animated film and E.B. White's sitting there with, okay, here are my stipulations. These 17 scenes from the book cannot be changed by one word. Can you imagine me, the producer? I'm like, ugh. Great.
Like, fine, we'll keep everything exactly.
Give me the rights. It seemed like he just gave those first 2 animators the rights, make your movie. And now he's like, let me go through the novel scene by scene. This is what you can't change. But so then the movie started really get going in late 1971, early 1972. We got the voice cast: Henry Gibson, Debbie Reynolds, Tony Randall. Tony Randall signed on to provide the voice of Templeton. Writing in his autobiography, Barbera wrote that Reynolds had called him and said that she was willing to join the project without being paid. Debbie Reynolds loved the book so much, she said, you don't have to pay me a dime. I will do this for free. That's pretty unheard of in the Hollywood community.
It is, yeah.
If I were her, I'd say, I will do this for free, but I want percentage on the back end if the movie's successful. Like, at least go for that, Debbie. That's not a good negotiation strategy with Debbie Reynolds' like management team at the time. Like, no. I am going to offer to do this for nothing. And her agent's like, great. No 10% for me.
Yay. No money.
Now I couldn't find like what did she actually make 0 or did she just offer that? I couldn't find like
okay, I think
they paid her something, right?
I watched a short little interview with her on
it.
And so at first it's funny you say that because I was talking a little different where she was like at first she didn't she wanted to do it. And then she mentioned how, but she's like, well, she's like, I want to be a part of this movie. And she's like, and she said, I did need the money, so I ended up doing it. I was just like, wait. I was just like, oh, man.
Wait, later in another interview, she said she needed the money, so she did it?
Yeah. And
it's
that's
all over the web that she wanted to do it for free.
And you know what? And when the thing I was watching, maybe I have no credit to this, but like, maybe she was mentioning a different movie because the thing I was watching, I was a little confused by it because it was always going back and forth between a lot of Disney stuff, and I was like, why is there so much Disney stuff involved when Paramount did this? So maybe she could have been discussing a different film. I'll have to go back and watch that. So
because I on 3 different websites I had trivia that all said that she said she would do it for free. She loved the book so much.
Oh, okay. Well, then ignore what I said. I'm gonna have to fact check myself.
She can't have wanted money that much because this is her last credit on IMDb until 1981.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
She's in a horror film from 1971 called What's the Matter with Helen, which is a very fun, campy kind of movie
Hmm.
following the success of like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. You had a lot of these older actresses kind of hamming it up in
Yes.
like these cheesy horror films. That's one of them. It's really fun. And then her
It's funny
next
you
project is
say,
Charlotte's Web. And then that's it for 8 years.
wow. It's funny you mention Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, because my roommate and I, after we watched Charlotte's Web, we watched the 2005 House of Wax,
What
which
a
is
double
just,
feature.
what a double feature. But they go to a theater
Is
that's
there a
playing
farm?
Whatever Happened. There is a farm involved.
So
But
there's
they
similarity.
go to a theater and they're watching the theater is playing Whatever Happened to Baby
Oh,
Jane.
okay.
And I was like, and they were showing a scene, I guess, with that. Who's the actress for that? For Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
That's Betty Davis and Joan Crawford.
Yes, and she's spinning around like going crazy. And I was just like, I don't know enough about that movie to know and understand like why they have this in House of Wax, but um, yeah, it just
It
something
just
that's it's funny you
just
mentioned it.
very quickly, Andrew, just to be a gay man, you need to know that it's Betty
I
Davis and Joan
know,
Crawford.
I know, and you know what? And they just
Don't go to a
made
party with a bunch of gays and be like, "Who was it in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?" They will shoo you out of the room.
so, I mean, they had a huge feud, correct? Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Yes,
you need to
and there was
watch the
the
show
show.
Feud.
Yes, what was it called? Feud. Yes,
It's
with
called
Susan
Feud.
Sarandon and
Jessica Lange.
Jessica
It's called
Lange. Yeah.
Feud,
Yes.
Betty and Joan. It is like one of
Yes.
the only limited series I have watched twice. When I
Wow.
had COVID last June and I was kind of out of it for a few days, I said, I just want to put on something that gives me pleasure that I love. And I watched Feud again, and it was just as good the
Okay.
second time. So trust
And
me, watch
I've seen
that and
some of
then
it.
watch Baby Jane in full. It's a great experience.
Yes, because they, I will because it's like I've known a little bit about the names I threw off on. My mother, my mom and dad were watching Feud, and my mom told me all about it, and then I'm sure I just kind of like it went in one ear and out the other after a couple of days.
Well,
But
it was hard to find for a while. For a few years, it was hard to find, and then last summer in June, I think it landed on Hulu. So I think it's still
Okay.
there now. So it's on Hulu. It's really good. But yeah, so this is her last project of any kind for a while.
Wow.
I don't know what she was doing. Like, I think she just let her daughter Carrie Fisher, explode onto the cinema scene, because that's right after
Yeah.
this is when we get her first film with Warren Beatty, Shampoo, and then 2 years later we get Star Wars. So maybe she was like, well, I'm gonna let Carrie take the reins for a while. But then she comes back with some really great stuff in the 90s, as we'll talk about. But then I mentioned that Tony Randall, who's a pretty famous actor, he was cast as the role of Templeton, but they were not happy with his voice work. He completed all of his voice work. The co-director, Takamoto, wrote that his readings went flat, which surprised all of us. Tony's delivery was too sophisticated. His singing was too operatic. He did not have enough of that raunchy feeling the character required. So they decided to replace him with Paul Lynde, who was voicing characters at the time for a TV show called The Perils of Penelope Pitstop. They had him come in, do a reading. They liked his voice better, so he was cast. That's the voice we hear in the movie. So like a pretty famous figure, Tony Randall, did the whole recording, and then they threw it out and they cast someone else.
Wow.
You mentioned it before, Andrew. What's the other very famous animated film where someone recorded most, if not all, and then they threw it out
Shrek
more
1.
than once? So Shrek 1, I believe Chris Farley recorded most of it, and then he passed away.
Yeah.
I don't know if what's weird is Chris Farley died in December of 97. Shrek comes out in May of 01. So I'm like, why were they were like recording all of his dialogue and in 97? That seems very early. So I'm always like, maybe it was a not so much like all of this will be used in the movie. Maybe it was like kind of a test kind of a thing, like to get a sense. But then Mike Myers comes on, he records the whole thing. And then you know what happened there for Shrek 1? He recorded Shrek 1 with a different like accent. Like he recorded a different, and he offered for free. He said, I don't feel like I pulled that off. I think I want to play it a little different. And he approached the filmmakers. He said, I want to do the whole recording for Shrek 1 again, a different way for free. And so he came back in and he re-recorded every line of dialogue a second time, and that's the one we hear in the movie.
So, I did not know that.
It's like he knew. He probably was like, I didn't quite get that right. I think there's a little bit I want to change about how he talks. And it's almost like Mike Myers saw the franchise possibilities. It was like, well, if I don't go back, then I'm gonna have to do it like that. If I do another one, like, let's get it right.
That's true. That's
and
smart.
So he made the correct choice there. But so poor Tony Randall.
Oh yeah. Got axed.
Yeah. I mean, he probably got over it.
Yeah, I mean,
what I would struggle with is if you're an actor and you're like in a live action movie and you think you do a good job and it could like really boost your career, and then the director cuts you out of the movie. Like that happens.
Oh yeah.
What's the story? There's a classic story of someone going to the premiere and they're not in the movie. And they're like, oh my God, brought their family.
I know there are several.
I can't remember who that is, but I've read that story.
I have as well, and I can't think of who it is. I just think of friends.
You're struggling. You're struggling. You're working for years. You get bit parts here and there. You finally get a really juicy supporting role in a movie directed by a big timer, and you're like, this is it. And you go to the premiere and you're not in the movie.
Well, we're going to get a heads up on it either. Like, at least
most of the time they get a call. They get a they get a a director on the other end of the line, like shaking with, I gotta tell you something, like, and usually it happens. It's for the story. This segment of the movie just didn't work, and we had to cut you in. But you don't hear too often them going to the premiere and finding out then.
That would, oh my God, it'd be humiliating. Because I know, like, I'm thinking of actors who were cut from movie. I mean, I know, like, Shailene Woodley had filmed all her scenes with Spider-Man 2, or Amazing Spider-Man 2. And they
right.
Which, thank God they did, because that movie was a mess anyway. I mean, I love Emma Stone, but
this might be what I'm thinking of. It's not exactly the same thing, but I do remember reading one of Rob Lowe's books, and he talked about how The Outsiders from 1983 by Francis Ford Coppola was going to be his big breakthrough because he had a lot of really emotional scenes throughout that movie. And I do remember a section of his book he talked about. He went to the premiere, and he's in the movie, but all of his really great dramatic scenes had all been cut. And he was shocked. Maybe that's
rough.
But it happens all the time. Tony Randall, he's very famous figure, a lot of TV, a lot of movies. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to go with the person. If it doesn't seem right, if the voice doesn't sound right, you gotta change it up for sure. So take me through your experience of watching Charlotte's Web. Like, what did you take? Did you enjoy watching this? It's a pretty long movie, like an animated movie for 73. It's 94 minutes. It's not brief. Yeah. It's not 68.
No, not at all. And I remember we were looking up because I believe Snow White was Disney's first full-length animated movie, correct?
Yeah.
It was like an hour and 20.
Yeah, it's like 75 to 80 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty short. And then
the shortest one is Dumbo.
How long is Dumbo?
64 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know how you call that a feature film. That's pretty short.
That's very
But they got away with it.
No, I really did enjoy it. I think opening up, I like the animation style, like the painting style. It's very I haven't watched a movie like that I haven't watched one where I don't remember it, because like I rewatched Aladdin. I'm like, oh, this is Aladdin. Yeah. But I haven't seen Charlotte's Web since I was a little kid, so I barely remember most of it. And I love seeing the animation style. And then of course when I see the Sherman Brothers come up, I was like, oh my God, Mary Poppins is of course my favorite Disney movie of all time. I grew up, my parents absolutely love it. They're huge Julie Andrews fans. And I love the music in it. And so hearing the music, I was like, oh, this is totally them. Like I felt like there were even little moments where I was like, oh, that's. I feel like they're stealing, like taking that from Mary Poppins, like right now. And uh, my first thing, I know this is quite a little side joke, but the dad wearing red cowboy boots remind me of How I Met Your Mother 100%. They're so bright.
Yeah.
Um, and there were so many like there were a lot of bright colors that just really popped out that we were like, some of the reds were just super bright. Like one of the dad's boots, but also like Fern's lips were so bright, and that's all we know. It's like God, these reds are popping out. And then Templeton, when he was in like the I think it was a junkyard, and there was a tomato can. The tomato can, the red was just so vibrant. And I really loved that. There was so many like moments where just like super vibrant. And it was kind of cool to watch a movie like that again, kind of for the first time, because I haven't watched it in so
Yeah.
long
It felt like
that
a
I
first
don't
time watch for
remember
me.
it. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, like it's kind of nice to see this animation style again. And I think, even with movies like, I mean, even looking at Puss in Boots, the new one, there's a lot of you can see the hand drawn style within the animation, and I really enjoyed that. And even with the Spider-Man into the Spideyverse, which is phenomenal, and the animation style is
Yeah.
so great. And there's so many. I mean, it's comic book style, but you can see the hand drawn styles to it as
That's
well.
really
And I
cool.
don't know.
We had to
And
mention that, but thanks for doing that. I love the animation in
of
that film.
course. Oh, it's phenomenal. I remember saw that movie by myself because I was just like, I need to go see this. And the Oscars are coming up. I know it's nominated, so I need to go watch it. And I mean, I watched it. I mean, weeks after it came out, and I barely got a spot in the theater. And it was in the middle of the afternoon as well. And which I was just like, this is amazing. I love that people are just coming to see this. And I was just blown away by the style of it. And now we had also Mitchell's versus the Machines as well. I have not seen that, but I hear it's phenomenal.
Really good.
And I know the style of that was very different. So I'm kind of hopeful that maybe this hand drawn style might come back into play again. I think that could be really great. Or
Yeah, it's
even just
never
this
100% gone.
combination. Yeah, and I think
There's
I think
too many
really a
animators who
combination of it.
adore that style that it's never going to be completely gone, and especially when it's
Yeah,
not just like the next big Pixar computer animated film. If it's something like
yeah,
Mitchell's or Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, you're going to get some of that hand drawn, which is really cool. You notice it when you see it.
absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that I think we might hopefully get some more full length animated films like that. And
there's a new Spider-Man coming out in a few months, right?
yes,
Across the
it comes
Spider-Verse.
out. I think that's correct. I think it comes out in June or July, which
Summer.
I'm
Okay.
super excited for. Because it's just so good. And oh my gosh, I just thought I'm trying to think what I was gonna say. And now it's completely gone. COVID brain now.
COVID brain.
COVID brain.
So Charlotte's Web. So I was kind of mixed on the movie overall, just as a movie. For me, I was really into it for the first 15 minutes. I loved the voiceover, the old man kind of like, welcome to the farm. I was like, oh, this is lovely. This is great.
Yeah.
And just the whole setup with this girl, like falling in love with this little pig. She takes care of it. And then the pig goes away and she's crying. And it's got a lot of emotion and heart in that opening 10, 15 minutes. Like once the story really settles down at that other farm of the uncle, and we have the friendship between Charlotte and Wilbur, the movie does drag a little bit. And it's like, it's not a whole lot happening. And I found Charlotte so much more interesting than Wilbur, that when it's like a lot of the focus is put on Wilbur, I'm like, okay. But for me, the big thing with this movie is that it felt like it was like a 40 to 45 minute story stretched to 94 minutes with song after song after song.
Yes, a lot of songs. A lot
and
of
they're fine, but
so many reprisals of the song. I was like, okay, we get it a little bit.
So I was really like taken with some of the quieter moments of just like Wilbur and Charlotte talking, and I like the style of animation in this movie. Although on my giant screen, you could really see the flaws. There's at one part towards the end, there's that big crowd of people, and right behind Wilbur, you see this one guy, and he's like waving at Wilbur, and his arm is doing this for about 12 seconds, and nothing else is moving. Not his head, not his eyes, not his body. It's just he's like got a creepy smile on his face, very excited to see this pig, as everyone is there. And he's waving, and the animator forgot to move any other part of his body.
That's bad.
For 3 seconds, fine, but it's like a long shot, and the camera doesn't really move, and you're like, no one looked at that.
Well,
So,
we're into
but
it, so
that's also kind of
watch it.
lovely too. I also love like the flaws of these older animated films are kind of, they make me laugh. They're good. But
well,
yeah,
sure, like,
as
maybe
a story,
and they were like,
a story, I thought we were like, well, we got 48 minutes here. We got to get it to 90. Let's just throw in a lot of songs. And the songs are fine, but there's not, is there one song in this movie that you're really humming to a day later?
Not really. No, I did like
not like Mary Poppins.
No, oh my gosh, Mary Poppins singing all the time. I did like the montage, I guess they did, of when like overnight while Charlotte's making her first web for some pig, and they did like an interesting montage of just like going back and forth with like with the dew forming and moving down on the strands of the web, and that was a pretty long song. I forget exactly how the song went.
When Charlotte's singing, I like that. I like the moments when she's singing.
Yes, I definitely like when she's singing. I think it's yeah. I think I like got annoyed by Wilbur so much that I wanted more Charlotte. But yeah, I like those sequences of that. I think also it focused. It almost just felt like it was like they had painted something really beautiful and they were just moving the camera around on it instead of like an actual animation part to it.
Yeah, there were some abstract
I like that
moments.
Part. Yes,
like I want to say there's a song that Charlotte sings, and we get some kind of abstract animation. It's not just like I like when it took a risk and did something a little bit outside the realm of just the basic narrative. I liked all of those moments.
Absolutely, and I don't know this moment. I think it was during a song. That bird that was flying with the brown bird with all the black stripes on it. When I was just like, I know what kind of bird you're talking about because I had those all the time back home. But I was just like, I can't imagine how much of a pain it was to draw that and animate that with the stripes moving for each. I was like, and to me that was super impressive, just because I know, like, I'm sure that was super difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean,
there really is such an appreciation for these kind of animation styles because I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's all every second is hand drawn, like in different way. Like it's mind blowing.
The animation is strong enough that it kind of surprises me that this got going in the summer fall of 71 and it's in theaters in March of 73. A year and a half. It seems very quick for 90 minutes of this animation. I mean, maybe it's the guy with the moving arm. That's how they got it out in time. Maybe might have been another year, but they said, well, we can cut a few corners. No one will notice. What is in 2023? Someone's going to be watching this on a 70-inch screen TV looking for that guy in the background. Little did he know. But yeah, I mean, like animation style for the most part I liked, and it's fine. I just felt it's hard to say about a 94-minute movie. It did feel a little long. I don't see why the story couldn't have been 74 minutes, like 20 minutes shorter. Like, we don't need animated films in the 70s to be 94 minutes. They can be 70, 75.
Yeah, I think it was they should have just gone to the fair part faster because it was pretty repetitive of just like, gotta think of a different word. And I don't know, I would have liked to have seen a better more time with Fern. I feel like should have been there.
Right.
I mean, I know
her story was weird.
It was interesting, and like the
like
guy
how she evolved.
Yeah, and
he like falls in love with that
and that was really
teenager, and you're like, okay, let's go to the fair.
Let's go to the fair and get like hold hands and like, he hold her over on the thing. That was very sweet. But I don't know. I feel like her. I mean, this is E.B. White's story, so they
Yeah.
can change it a lot. But like, I wish there could have been a way to where he stayed at the farm that he started on. I don't see the point in
Right.
him. I don't see why he needed to leave their farm to go to the other one. That made
She
no sense
comes,
to me.
yeah, Fern comes and visits. Like they could have just put Wilbur as he got older into the barn behind the house or
Yeah,
something, and that's where Charlotte lives. Because doesn't he
yeah.
come back? Doesn't he come back at the end to Fern's farm, or does he stay at the same farm?
He stays at the same farm.
He
Yeah,
never comes back home. But
yeah.
it does seem kind of like, I mean, I guess it's to put distance between him and Fern is the idea. Because what is it? Halfway through the movie, Fern visits him, and then like she kind of has like googly eyes for this boy, and then she walks away, and Wilbur doesn't he turn around? He's got tears in his eyes again, and he's like, Fern didn't even say goodbye.
And that's a great impersonation of it because it's making me mad.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mean, sorry, E.B. White, but I think it would have been more heartbreaking if like he was in her backyard and she spent less and less time with him. And because I mean,
Right, as she got older, you could have done it that way.
If he's if he's a mile away, yeah, sometimes you don't have a time to for a 30-minute walk and 30-minute back. Like you might not have time for that, so it's understandable why she maybe couldn't have seen him all the time. But if she's right there and she starts seeing this other guy, so she doesn't take the 10 seconds to go in the backyard to see him, that's a little more heartbreaking. And I think a little more. I don't know. I would maybe compare it more of like a dog. How people, as they grow up, their dog might become less important to them as they have kids. That will never be me. I swear. But I know like my sister was talking like her two dogs. Like, of course, like they were the loves of her life.
Everything, and then she has kids.
They were and then she had kids, and she's like, there is a change where the dog becomes a dog. And
right,
I'm just like,
not
ooh,
quite
I'm just like, oh, okay, man. Yeah, I mean, they're not your baby anymore, and I think that's just so. I think it always stuck with me, and I feel like that would have been that could be a very nice, a more a stronger story with Charlotte's Web if maybe, yeah, he had been there and she just slowly not lost interest, but like she didn't need to see him as much because she had other things going on. She had a guy that she was interested in.
Maybe Andrew, they brought that to E.B. White and he said, no, that has to be the way I did it in the book. Maybe they brought that to him because it does seem to speed things along a little bit, just make everything a little bit kind of focused. If they just keep the pig at the same place, I mean, we wouldn't get the scenes at the beginning of Wilbur in the barn, and like there's some other animals there trying to talk to him, and he's like, I miss Fern. Like we wouldn't get that.
I guess we would. Yeah, we wouldn't get all that whininess, and I do wish I think a change I think would have been really great, and maybe this was a change they wanted, was do like several years into the future where Fern comes by, even when she's like 20 years old and maybe she's married now, and like she still comes to see them. That would have been really nice to see. And then like generations of Charlotte's spiders continued on, and Wilbur's older now. I think that would have been sweeter, and I think it would have played along with the message of this circle of life and life cycle,
right?
And even the ones that you love can still be a part of your life. Even if you don't see them as much, it's still they still care about you.
A really dark turn the story could have taken was we don't see Fern for years, and then 20-year-old Fern comes around, and then she kills Wilbur for food. That would have been a dark turn.
That would have been really sad. If this story ever becomes public domain, I feel like that would be
that horror film is happening.
Oh, I mean, they already have Winnie the Pooh.
Hi, Fern. So here's a pig. We need a pig tonight.
She can go full Pearl and just like completely.
That's great casting. Mia Goth as older Fern.
What if it was like it could be a same universe. Pearl, like
Pearl / Charlotte's Web.
Pearl Fern.
Wilbur would not make it very well.
No.
Poor Wilbur. But it's
No,
got some nice emotional beats, like, and I wonder like how this movie plays for a very young kid, because for like the last 30 minutes, you are aware that Charlotte is going to die soon. Like she talks
yeah,
about it and she tells him, like, I'm going to die. And he's like, no. And then all of a sudden one day she's gone. And it's like one of those like life lessons that, but you can't avoid it in this movie. It's not like, I mean, it happens like very quickly with Mufasa and the Lion King. And then about
yeah.
a minute later, we're off with Timon and Pumbaa and we're laughing. It's fun again. But it's kind of a dreary section at the end of the movie where it's just like, okay, she's dead and he's sad again. But I like the final beats of the story. I liked, all of the spiders, her eggs breaking and all of the spiders come out and then they all leave Wilbur and he's crying again. But then 3 of the runts stay behind. That was kind of cute. I like that.
It was very cute. And um, one part that I actually kind of liked more in, because I watched some clips of the 2006 live action,
Mm-hmm.
and something I always remember from the live action that I noticed was not in this 73 version was that, like, Templeton and Charlotte, when Templeton goes up to get her egg sac, uh, in the 2006 version, they have this like a sweet, tender moment
Mm-hmm.
together, where he like comes to get it and like he looks at her and she's like, Templeton, like, thank you for everything you've done. And it's like a sweet little thing. And then
Okay.
he's Templeton, he's not gonna be all like, but he just kind of like looks at her with like this a look, just like, show that he really cares about her, and then he goes and takes her egg sac away. Um, and that was not at all in the 73 version. And I I wish they had done that because Templeton he's a funny little character, but um, I think obviously he and Charlotte have known each other for a long time, and it would have been nice to have seen at least a little bit of humanity to him because he was a little selfish little rat and annoying and whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
but I love that scene in the 2006 version where they just kind of have a sweet little thing, and she thanks him because I mean, Charlotte asked a lot from Templeton to do
Mm-hmm.
things, and uh, I don't think she ever said thank you in the 73 version, and in this one she does, and yeah, I like that moment, and I wish that had been in the 73 version. How maybe I guess maybe it's not in the book, because I feel like I even rewatched the 70 that scene in the 73 just to see if they even had that, and no, they did not.
Okay. Interesting.
So
I
yeah, I
mean,
think
when
because then
did
Templeton has like kids and stuff, and at the end, and you're like, oh, funny, Templeton found a lady rat, and they have kids together, and I feel like that would have been a little more like cuter if we had seen his tender side with Charlotte, and maybe you
so
could relate it to it a little more.
so E.B. White dies in 1985. So when they made the
Okay,
'06, I don't think they had to,
hide
include
it.
like all of his demands for this '06. They could probably do a little bit more what they wanted for that version. So maybe that's part of it too. I mean, the,
Yeah,
the more we talk about it now, I'm kind of intrigued to watch the '06. I've never seen it. I've never seen a clip from it. Like I don't know anything.
it's an hour and a half. It's quick. It's the
It's the
same
same
time.
length. It's not two
Yeah,
hours 20.
and
So
there's no songs in it either. So
doesn't go
I
on
don't believe
forever.
it. Yeah, they say no to the songs, and um
Oh, there's no
yeah, I
songs
would
in
like.
the '06. Oh, that's interesting.
I do not think there is. Um,
There's no singing and
I
dancing. No
yeah, I can.
Dakota Fanning songs about loving her new boyfriend. No, none of
Yeah, and also the voice of Wilbur is not a like 40-year-old man. Um, it sounds like a little boy, which is probably how it should. Uh,
That's a good
yeah,
point. I didn't really think about that watching the '73, but maybe it would have been better to have cast a younger actor for Wilbur, like have it be like a kid, like that might have sounded better for the pig.
he was 6 weeks old, and I was just like, he does not sound like 6 weeks old, guys. Come on. That was
Just
definitely my biggest. I
matured
think
very quickly.
that could have been. I think I could handle a kid being upset. I think it felt like it was an adult man crying. I was like, shut up. So I think maybe, yeah, I would have had my feelings I've been a little nicer.
I mean, we could have at least eliminated a few of those moments of him just whining.
Yeah, Just like all of them.
You know, I won't do any
Yeah.
more impressions. We know the drill. So the movie premiered at the Radio City Music Hall on February 22nd, 1973, was released to theaters on March 1st to moderate critical and commercial success. This was the first of only 4 Hanna-Barbera films released to theaters, not to be, or maybe not even theaters, but films in total, not to be based upon one of their famous cartoons. The other 3 films are Chomps from 79, Heidi's Song from 82, and Once Upon a Forest from 93. The only one of those films I've heard of is Once Upon a Forest, because I was 9 years old in 93, and I'm sure I at least knew of it. Probably saw the trailer, like, oh, look, an animated movie. No, I'm too old for that now. I'm 9.
And now, that's exactly how I was. Or was I feel like you go through that phase where you're like,
you feel like you're too old for that.
I'm too old for animated movies, and now I'm like, I love to go see this. I don't care. I just saw. Marcel the Show with Shoes On it's under animation style or animated feature films for this year for the awards, and Marcel the Show with Shoes On, my favorite movie of the year. I
was thinking of watching that movie today. Andrew, is that worth watching?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm trying to.
Oh my gosh!
Watch one 2022 release every day for a couple weeks before I go to Sundance. I'm trying.
Where is Sundance this year?
Sundance is always in Park City, Utah.
Okay, it is. Okay.
Yeah. So by the time this drops, it would have happened already. We're recording in early January, but Sundance is going to be like 10 days of new 2023 movies that nobody's seen yet. And I wanted to put out a video of my top 10 films of 22. So I'm just like with these last week and a half, I'm trying to see as much as I can. And that includes animated films. I watched Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is lovely. And I just watched The Bad Guys. That was great. Fun. And then I'm hearing great things about this Marcel movie. So
it's so. Now, did you watch the
I know nothing.
YouTube videos of him?
No.
Okay, well, so what I would do, I would watch the YouTube videos first, because it's like 3 or 4 YouTube videos. I remember watching it as a kid, and he was Marcelo Show with Shoes On, and it was this cute little shell who has shoes on, and and Jenny Slate plays the voice of Marcel. Marcel, the male shell. I always forget that. And he's just super cute little funny jokes, and he's just like, you want to know how I go skiing? I put toothpicks on my feet, and it has like these cute, super little jokes, and it's very adorable though. I loved it as a kid, and then with the movie, I mean, it's the same guy who made it's his directorial debut, and it's still his character.
Oh, cool.
He it basically takes place in one house, and it's Jenny Slate's, of course, the voice again, and it's so lovely, and it's. I mean, I cried so much, and then laughed so much. I mean, it's about him, Marcel. Just like the little things in life are like amazing to him that we take for granted. Is how it really is the message of the movie, and the music is so great. I've listened to the soundtrack a lot. It was on my Spotify Wrapped.
Oh, cool! It's on your. Is it your top 5 of the year?
It was my number 1.
It was your number 1. That's what it was.
It's my number 1. Because I mean, and then after that, and now Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best movie of the year for me. But Marcel the Shell, I just had, I don't know, it just stood out in a way where I was just like, gosh, this is such, it just gave my heart, like, I don't know, there was so much heart in it, and I was laughing and crying out the entire thing, and it was pure joy. Like, I just enjoyed every minute of it, and it's short. It's only I think it's only an hour and a half as well, and
it's not 3 hours.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's not 3 hours. And he's just so funny. And there's I could talk about it forever. I really loved it, and I mean, of course, like the reviews, 99% Rotten Tomatoes, as it fully deserves. And yeah, I 100% think you should watch it.
It's better than Charlotte's Web from 73.
Yeah, no annoying characters in it.
There's no whining.
No whining. I would watch it
Don't
and then just kind of
die.
like and I could put yourself in it. Like no, not at all. Like Marcel's so cute, and it's about him finding his family. His family got taken away from him, because it's a funny you know people. It's a world where he's a talking show with shoes on, and everyone is like that's normal. That's fine. Like everyone's okay with that.
Mhm.
It's not like it's a weird like phenomenon. Like and this guy rents out an Airbnb for several months, and he meets the little cell that lives within the house. And he's like, "I'm gonna make a documentary about you. You're so interesting." Uh, and he becomes famous on TikTok and YouTube and all that. So they intertwine the YouTube sensation with it, and it's really wonderful. Yeah, please watch it. It's so great, and I really hope it wins Best Animated Feature this year because it's qualified for it, and I think it
Oh,
won some award already.
that could happen.
I think but it could win, but I think people were saying Pinocchio will probably win,
I
unfortunately.
feel like yeah, there's not a Disney film that really popped this year. Like Lightyear's not winning. Turning
No,
Red would
it was
be
cute.
probably
Yeah,
the top one, but it came out last March. I don't know how many people are really passionate about it, and we'll see. That could maybe win too. But I feel
yeah,
like
it
Del
could win.
Toro's Pinocchio might get it because that was really
I
cool.
think it. Yeah, I hear it's really great. I heard the animation. I mean, it's stop motion, correct?
Yeah, it's just gorgeous and it's on
Okay,
Netflix and everyone's watching it, so that could win. But
I'll have to watch it because
Marcel is not on a streamer right now. Like I have to pay for it on Amazon. Like it's not like
yeah, yeah,
streaming.
yeah. You have to pay for. I mean, I saw it in theaters twice.
Okay.
I wanted the experience of it. And yeah,
Yeah, it's
oh,
funny
so
you
great.
said like what when we do reach a certain age where we're like, oh, we're too old for this. I've never had an animated movie come out that I wanted to see in my entire life that I didn't see because oh, I'm too old for that. Like even when I was a teenager, middle school, high school, like I went to see the latest Disney animated film. Like I saw almost all of them in a theater, even when I was in
Wow.
college. Like I never was like, oh, I'm too old for this. Like I would
Yeah.
maybe kind of slip to the back of the theater feeling not very cool, but I would watch them. You know, like all
Well,
the
I think
Pixar
also.
stuff, especially. Never miss a
Oh,
Pixar.
never ever. I think it's also you can tell when there's that message. You know, there's a deeper message to the film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go see Hotel Transylvania. I don't care about that kind
No,
of a
some of
thing.
them I don't. If I don't care about the
I'm
movie,
like,
I don't go. But it's not because of
yeah, I'm
animation.
just
Like,
like, yeah, it doesn't. I'm like that. That's a movie made for kids. And Minions, God, I hate Minions.
oh, I don't like that
Like
either.
those movies,
Yeah.
I don't need to see that. That's not
Yeah.
one. But like Puss in Boots, I'm like, I would like. I mean, I probably wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't heard how good the animation was.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there definitely are some that like I don't care to see. But I think Pixar, I'll always go see. It's kind of hard not to go see it, and because Inside Out is, I think, it's like I kind
That
of
movie
categorize
is
movies so
so good.
differently. It's so that's of all. I mean, no, Shrek 2, like I said, is my favorite anime movie of all time because it's just so funny and
Yeah.
it's so to me it's so perfect. Like there's nothing wrong with it, and it's just completely enjoyable. Inside Out, though, I think is in my head I have it in a different category, but that is also top animated movie of all times. I love Inside Out deeply, and I actually, I mean, it'll be later on, but that's my double feature. It'll be that.
Oh, okay.
But it's yeah, I Pixar I think allows like they take their animated movies so seriously, and
Hmm.
they make it to where
So
adults
emotional.
can enjoy these too. They're
Yeah.
so emotional. I mean, Up and Inside Out are just like phenomenal movies that like adults love. Like my parents love those watching those movies, and
Hmm.
like they don't want to watch Hotel Transylvania because they don't, you know,
Yeah.
because like that is a kids movie for kids, but Pixar makes kids movies that adults can really love and rewatch, and I think that's really, and I think that's hard to pull off as well
Yeah.
because I think adult anime. I mean, going back into animation again, I think we're also in an era of a lot of teenage and adult animated TV shows, mostly like with, I mean, Family Guy, of course, has always been there, but like, I mean, Bob's Burgers and
Hmm.
oh my gosh, what is it called?
American Dad.
American. What's the boy and the scientist that every boy loves,
Rick
every
and Morty.
teenage guy loves? Rick and Morty. There
Mm.
it is. I can't think of it. Rick and Morty, like all these shows where they're going into I don't know, we're also in an era. Yeah, like animated adult content is very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's also, I mean, it's kind of sad. Something I've noticed. I was watching Teen Titans with my niece. Um, and the Teen Titans I know is not what they do anymore. Like it's still the same show, same characters. The animation is completely different because it was much more,
Mm-hmm.
when I was growing like early 2000s, they had, the typical animation style, I guess, but like the typical Batman style where there's cool fighting. It's a cool kid show.
Mm-hmm.
And now today it's a super silly for like little kids. They don't have any serious topics going on. There's no fighting. It's very cute.
Junk
And
food.
it is exactly what, yeah, junk food, yes. And it's kind of a bummer. I'm like why did they change the animation style? Like, I mean, and with the animation style change, they changed the whole concept of the show. Even Scooby Doo, they changed their
Mm.
animation every now and then. And the most recent one, I'm like, I don't like they well, I think recently they changed it again. I think they changed it like 3 times recently. But they're changing the animation style. And then with that, they're also changing the whole tone of the show. Because even Pokemon, I know they had huge
Ugh.
animation change in the past couple. You're not a Pokemon guy?
No.
Oh, they changed the animation style of Pokemon for like the very like really the first time in the 20
Mm.
plus years it's been on, and they're just they're making it more like cutesy, I guess. Where like, and it says I don't it shouldn't be as cutesy, and it did change the vibe of the show, I guess. I don't really watch it, but I could see a huge difference in just the vibe of the show with the different animation style. And I don't know, animation changed
My
a lot in the
youngest
past few
brother in
years.
'99, my youngest brother tried to get me to take him to Pokemon, the first movie. I said,
Oh, great
I
movie.
said, Cam, I would rather see literally anything else. That's where I was in '99. But yeah, some of
Great
the
movie.
animation for kids now, like on TV, like streaming or like the short stuff, it's the animation and the stories are not great. Like I have 2 nephews, and when they were really little, I'd go over to my brother's house and they'd be watching some like Disney 10-minute, 20-minute like show or something where it's just like Mickey and Donald, they're like racing, and it's like bad, like computer animation, like without any real backgrounds, and you're just like,
Yeah,
this is what the 3-year-olds are watching.
it is.
Like,
It's
it's
almost
bad.
it's like dumbed down. Yeah,
It's just dumbed down, just like silly. No, so comparing that kind of stuff to like an Inside Out theatrical film, Take Her to the Moon for me. Like there's nothing
yeah.
like it. Like that level of storytelling you can't really get on television at all these days. But
Mm-mm.
I love animated films that really
I do
work
too.
for kids and adults, like where you can just go and it doesn't matter how old you are. And I think Charlotte's Web from '73 achieves that in some respects. I do think the songs make it feel like it's for kids. Like, when they're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
singing and everything is like, okay. But I do like some of the themes the movie plays with about life and death, and that felt more adult, and I like that about it. It wasn't
yeah,
just silly nonsense for 90 minutes at all. Like there's some
yeah.
nice elements of that story, which I just saw here on E.B. White's Wikipedia page. In a 2012 survey of school library journal readers, Charlotte's Web came in at #1 in their poll of the top 100 children's novels. #1.
Wow,
So
wow.
it's a really beloved book. We're on here
It
talking about
is.
how we would change things. I'm sure like listeners are like, guys, it's a classic. Like, let's just leave it be. But
I
before I
know.
get to the final couple pieces of trivia here about the movie, I did want to read. This is the synopsis of the movie on IMDb, like the summary. This is what it says. Wilbur is a farm pig who's terrified that he'll end up on the dinner table. His friend Charlotte, a charming spider, comes to his rescue. She weaves words into her web, convincing the farmer that Wilbur is too special a pig to kill. That's the
Wow.
IMDb summary at the top of the page. I'm like, who wrote that? That's
That's
just very
very, I
like,
mean,
it's
that's
true.
also, I mean, it is the entire plot of the movie written in one sentence.
I just thought that
Well,
was very matter of fact. He doesn't
they
want to
say
become
kill and
part of the
murder a
dinner
lot.
table.
I mean, yeah, that's it's funny how literal they were in the movie. I mean, they say kill, we're gonna eat him. They say that stuff so many times. I'm like, can you
Yeah.
like sugarcoat this just a little
Doesn't
bit?
doesn't
Like,
Wilbur say in dialogue like I don't want to become food or something along those lines?
yeah,
Like
I
he
believe so.
knows he
Yeah,
could become food.
yeah,
Like, and he says it out loud, which is very strange for a children's film. I'm like, okay.
yeah. Yeah. I think,
Like,
and
Wilbur,
then
stop whining. That's not going to help. Just
I
take the
mean,
axe one day.
he needed to do something for himself. He needed a little pig. Little pig
So
pissed me off.
this, I can't imagine this is surprising to you, but reviews of the film in 73 were mixed from the nation's critics. I like what Vincent Canby had to say in the New York Times. They love that Vincent Canby reviewed this movie. It's fantastic. And he said, the music and visuals are exceedingly uninteresting, but the screenplay has followed the original novel so closely that it's still possible some audience members might be moved by the story. That's what he said about it. Well, it follows the book, so maybe some people might like it.
It does. It does.
Gene Siskel gave it 3 stars. He said the animation style is television quickie, bland, static backgrounds. White's story, however, is so blessed nice, it's doubtful that anyone or anything could ruin it. He said, well, this novel is just so perfect. No filmmaker, animated or live action, could ruin it. Thank you, Gene. And then Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times said, no one, I think, could ask for a more respectful treatment of a classic. The grown-ups will miss some of the artful appeal the book has, but they can settle gladly enough for a cheerful and enthusiastic piece of children's fare. That's a nice sentence about the movie.
It's a pretty good one, yeah.
That might have gotten a couple dads to be like, okay, I'll take my son to this. Thank you, Charles. So here's what do you know what E.B. White, the author of the book, thought of the 73 movie?
I do not know.
Do you think he liked it?
I think he would.
He didn't.
Oh, he didn't. Oh no.
Okay. Reportedly, E.B. White was very displeased with this adaptation. He wrote in a 77 letter, "We have never ceased to regret that your version of Charlotte's Web never got made." Oh, this is to the first 2 guys, I think, that didn't make it. The Hanna-Barbera version has never pleased either of us, referring to him and his wife. It is a travesty. And then later he wrote of the film, the story is interrupted every few minutes so that somebody can sing a jolly song. I don't care for jolly songs. The Blue Hill Fair, which I tried to report faithfully in the book, has become a Disney World with 76 trombones. But that's what you get for getting embroiled in Hollywood.
Man.
He did not like this movie.
Man. I mean, it makes me think of the Making of Mary Poppins and watching Saving
Right.
Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr.
Of
how,
yeah, love that.
P.L. Travers. And
Yeah,
her
P.L.
just
Travers
like
was not
really
happy.
being reluctant to get that movie made. Like, did not want to do
yeah.
it. Walt Disney himself flying all the way over to her and being like, please, I want to make this. And she's like, I don't know. Don't put what isn't that a big part of the movie? Like, she's really turned off by them putting songs in the film and dancing animated penguins.
She was okay with some of the songs.
Okay.
She was just like, she didn't want songs, but then they did some. She's like, okay, these are not that bad. And
yeah,
then,
she
but
sings
she was like,
one, right?
absolutely. Yeah, she likes like Let's Go Fly a Kite.
Let's Go Fly a Kite. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it was her dad, like, redeeming himself a little bit. But then she hates the animation stuff, and even when she saw the movie when
when
they were
she's
showing,
watching the movie, she's like,
she's watching it. She was like, "Oh, why do they still did it?" Like when she said she didn't she allowed them to because what made I mean this is told from Sam Mr. Banks side of it, but she was down for it and then she was okay, and then she found out it was gonna be animated parts, and then she was like, "No, like you guys said you weren't gonna do it, and now you're doing it, and so no, you
doesn't she
don't
pull?
right
Doesn't
leave
she
it
like
her."
pull the plug for a moment of the movie? Like,
She
doesn't she
does,
say
yeah,
you're not making this if you're going to put in animation? Like, she was like
yeah,
done.
she does, yeah, she pulls them, and that's what, and finding that out is what makes Tom Hanks go see her, or
That's what
Walt
makes him
Disney go
fly
see
to
her, I
her.
guess.
And yeah,
Yeah.
because I saw that movie one time. That's now 10 years old. That came out in 2013. My memory of that
What? Oh my God, I
movie,
saw it twice.
my memory of that movie is Emma Thompson watching the movie and her just sobbing at the end. That's the part I
Yeah,
remember. Like, she was
yeah,
so
yeah.
moved.
Yeah, it's so moving. And I remember I saw it with my friend, uh, and I mean I absolutely loved it. And then I saw it on Martin Luther King Day of I guess 2013, 2014. Um,
Mm.
and my my parents, my mom and I, of course, love Mary Poppins. We went go see it together, and they loved it as well. And uh, yeah, I think just seeing a more of a behind the scenes look at the creation of it was very nice. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm the only 21-year old who wants to go see Saving Mr. Banks. Uh, but
You were the
it was
only
like it was.
21-year-old to see Saving
I
Mr.
mean,
Banks?
I feel like there was hardly. Oh my! When I went, it was a bunch of old people. Not gonna lie.
It was just like
Both
70 and up and
both
you.
times. Yeah, I pretty much. I feel like Mary Poppins. I mean, I adore Mary Poppins, but people do not like it. I think I don't care for it. I don't understand. I think because I was so in love with it as a kid that it just carried on. But
I love Mary Poppins, one of my all-time favorite Disney movies.
it is. It's so good. And I love the painted backgrounds they have as well. And oh my gosh, I could go on about it for best movie ever.
The
Uh,
first hour of Mary Poppins is like,
it's magical.
there's nothing better. The second
Yeah,
half is a little long, over long,
it
but
is.
it's
It
still
is
great.
long movie. It is. And not that that's they get into the more deeper undertones of the whole film of she's there to the dad is really the issue. The dad's not involved in the kid's life and all that stuff. And Julie Andrews is of course phenomenal. And yeah, so great.
I just love how it opens with that song that was Sister Suffrage, and they just like march around the house. It's so great. That's such a great way to open the movie. But so yeah, so E.B. White, not a fan. He went to his grave just being like, man, that was, I wonder what he would have thought of the '06. Probably wouldn't have liked that either. We'll never know. But my final piece of trivia about the movie is, did you know there's a direct-to-video animated sequel?
Yes, I did. I saw that. It was
It's called Charlotte's Web 2: Wilbur's Great Adventure, released in
yes.
2003 by Nickelodeon.
I saw images of it on Google, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. It came out what 40 years later, 30 years later.
So 30 years later it came out.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, during that
quite...
time, 01 to 05, no, 01 to 06, where Disney was just releasing direct-to-video sequels to all of their classic animated films.
Yeah.
So it was around that era, so they probably saw an opportunity. Like, what else? What does Disney not own that we could maybe make a sequel to? Charlotte's Web, that was popular in the 70s. Let's do that. That's a known
What's the
product.
plot?
So the plot is, it's about Wilbur's relationship with a lonely lamb named Cardigan. And the film also...
Does it become a cardigan?
Like, maybe the lamb whines at Wilbur in the sequel. I don't know. But it also shows Charlotte's children as adolescents. Reviews for the sequel were unfavorable, with critics panning its plot and its animation.
You know what?
You're telling me they didn't rave about Charlotte's Web 2, Wilbur's Great Adventure? It sounds fantastic.
You know what I'm thinking? Oh my God, that's it. It's the blonde-haired spider.
That's the blonde-haired spider.
Yes,
that you were talking about before.
That was what
that's
it's
in
from.
the sequel.
There we go.
So you've seen it.
I have seen the sequel.
You took a moment of
I
your
mean,
life to watch the sequel.
somewhere when I was a child, I watched that sequel because that I remember a blonde-haired spider, and
I
I
was wondering
I
what the hell you
see
were
it
talking about. I was
now.
like, what?
Oh my God! This also, why are they? That looks awful. That looks like an awful movie. But I saw it, and it's isn't that I don't know. The brain is crazy. How like I know I've seen a spider with blonde hair before, but I don't know what it was. When we talked about it an hour ago, I thought I drew it, but nope, it was Charlotte's Web 2 Wilbur's Great Adventure straight to DVD or video, whichever one would have been wild.
So I did not take the time to look at that, but just whenever there's a sequel or a remake, or it's like, I mean, we talked about Silent Night, Bloody Night last time, and that film had a sequel and a remake. And now here we are with
Yeah,
Charlotte's Web, and that's got a remake and a sequel, both made much later on. It just seems to be a trend with our talks.
it is.
Some point we'll get to a film that just has never been redone. And anyway, Sunday Bloody Sunday, that never got a sequel. A 30 years later sequel. Didn't
Well,
happen.
I think something that's interesting is, I mean, I think Disney's of course taking a turn now, and they're releasing animated films that are or sequels. I mean, Frozen 2 I thought was a great movie. I don't know if you ever saw it,
Yeah,
but
Frozen 2 is good.
um, I was like,
I'm not
this is
against sequels.
gorgeous. Yeah, and well, I was like, this is probably like one of the first I feel like animated Disney princess movies that like got a theater release sequel. Um,
Right.
and I really enjoyed. I thought the animations for it was beautiful. The colors are gorgeous, and the songs are really good. I mean, they weren't as catchy and playful as as Frozen One's songs, but I was like, this is a. It was very theatrical,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoyed it. And I know, I mean, I know, I hear they're making a Moana sequel, and I'm sure they'll make a Frozen 3 at some point.
They're making an Inside
Um,
Out sequel.
yes, and I saw that too, and I was like, how are they going to do that? Because that's going to be. I'm really nervous about that one because Inside Out is so. I love Inside Out so much. I'm happy, and I'm looking forward to the sequel to it. But I'm interested. I mean, obviously the first one they're battling the issues of sadness and anger and kind of depression within the child, and also growing up. And oh my gosh, and then so I'm interested to see where they go with this new one. And I remember something always people talked about was how in Inside Out, and the girl Riley, inside her head, she has male and female emotions, but everyone else has either male or just female emotions depending on their
Mm.
sex. And people are like, why is that? And I mean, I think it's more so just uh for different voice actors. They don't want an all male or all female. I don't know. But I'm interested to see they add that aspect to
Mm-hmm.
anything within this next one. And if maybe not transgender, but Disney won't do that yet. But I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go from there because Inside Out was so wonderful and deep. I'm interested to see, see what
When
they're going through now.
when they're just making a sequel to make a profit, you feel it immediately
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. But when they make a sequel because they have a story to tell, like I think 2 of the 5 best Pixar movies ever are Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3. I
Oh,
think both of
so
those
good.
sequels, I had my issues with 4. I liked some of it, but it did feel a little bit more of a cash grab.
It wasn't needed. It was not
This
needed. No,
3 ends so beautifully. That was it. Like
it's
that
so
was it for
perfect.
me. I didn't need more stories. But like there are clearly great stories still to tell with those characters in 2 and 3. So if you have that, Frozen 2 was great. There's been some solid sequels. Finding Dory wasn't the best, but that was
It
fun.
was okay. Yeah.
When there's clearly like a story to tell and it's the same director, it's the same team, like usually I'm pretty excited. It's going to theaters. It's not just, but like Charlotte's Web 2, that was just a cash grab. That's like all that was.
Oh yeah. And Disenchanted just came out. I love Disenchanted. I thought it was really
Oh,
wonderful. Some of the reviews are not that great.
was so bad. You like that?
Oh, see, I enjoyed. I
That
love
was
Amy Adams. I'll see
I
that with you on.
adore her, and I'm like, what are you doing here, Amy? Like, what is
I
happening to your
it's
career
funny.
right now?
I was just like, I was chill with it. I mean, of course, Enchanted is just unbelievably
Chanted so
phenomenal.
much better.
It's so good. I don't know. I thought I enjoyed. Now there were some plot holes that was a little I couldn't really get past, but I overall I really enjoyed Disenchanted. I didn't like dread it. And I was like, this is cute. I enjoy it. The songs are kind of fun. The story's interesting, but I can see why people didn't like it for sure. But what did you like about it? I mean, I'm sure you can say a lot of things about it, but
Oh no, just I just didn't take to the story where the characters were, like the relationship with the daughter, and it none of it really just compelled me very much. I didn't think the songs were that great, and Amy Adams just didn't seem to be inhabiting that character the way she is in the first one, where she wasn't a star yet, and that was one of her first big movies, and she's just such a fresh face in the first Enchanted, and this one it just felt like, if like I could see in her eyes that her team had been like really trying to pull her into this project for a few years, and she finally was like, okay. It doesn't feel like this was like a passionate, like, oh, this is the movie I get to make next, I'm so
yeah,
excited. It was like, well, I guess the only way they can make another one is with me, so pay me a lot of money, boys. I'm just like, it's been kind of a weird few years for Amy Adams' career. She's like one of the most nominated actors at the Oscars without a win,
gosh,
and
yeah.
then the last 3 or 4 films she's done have not really performed. So
No, they've not, unfortunately.
she's in a new movie by the director of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood called, what's it called? Night Bitch? It's got
Night
a weird
Bitch.
title.
Yep. Night
That
Bitch.
one I'm intrigued by. I'm like, come on, let's get a good Amy Adams performance. But so, as we wrap up our discussion about Charlotte's Web, it's like, I think for kids, it's pretty entertaining and they'd really like it. I think for adults, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
not one that you have to go back and revisit for its 50th anniversary. It has its moments. I especially like the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes. I was like really into some of the middle stuff.
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 too many songs, and I think that was kind of an issue. I think the movie could be a
Yeah.
little shorter, but it's got some lovely voice acting, especially by Debbie Reynolds, and some of the animated sequences are very nice. And it's not, you could watch a much worse 90-minute movie. Like it's fine.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think
6 out of 10.
uh they should have eliminated the little rat song. Didn't need that. Um
Yeah.
uh yeah. I agree. It is I was not disappointed in having to watch it. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't reaching for my phone to like avoid it all the time. I was like,
No,
this is
it
cute.
was fine.
And yeah, I think they could have been 10 or so minutes shorter. Um yeah, it was overall cute
So it's on,
movie.
if you want to watch
Uh
it, at least as of this recording, it's on Paramount Plus. That's the place to watch it if you have that. It's you can, I think it had the '06 version there too. I
oh,
don't know if I saw
I'm
the sequel. I don't think I saw that. I don't think they're like clamoring to get that on Paramount Plus. I think it's because it said it was
somehow I
Nickelodeon.
saw it, so
It said it was
I
co-produced by
don't
Nickelodeon and Universal. So I don't think that's a
Nickelodeon.
Paramount movie. It's okay.
Mm-mm,
We'll survive.
no. Well, and I know the 2006 one is done by Nickelodeon as well. So I guess they maybe just got the
Oh,
rights to it somehow.
maybe they just got, maybe they were like,
Um,
this one's too important. We need to get this one.
yeah.
All right, that takes us to our final 2 segments. First one, Divine Double Feature. So you would pair this with Inside Out? Is that what you said?
So I have two. Yeah. So Inside Out for
Okay.
me would be a great one, just because I think the overall message of, I mean, it's not more about life and death. I think it's more about emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's how. Yeah, that's what I would want to pair it with, because I think the message of life and death and life cycle was so um adamant in Charlotte's Web, and it's not really hidden.
Mm.
Um, and it's pretty straightforward. And I think with Inside Out, the message of just uh, you know, being comfortable with your emotions, and the
Mm-hmm.
importance of understanding them and really feeling them, and
Right.
how emotions drive us, is a wonderful message. I think that no one really thinks about as much. I
Mm-hmm.
think the life cycle, life and death that happens in these movies a lot. We see that pretty often, but we never they never really deal with the internal struggles for individuals, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what is going on the inside has a direct effect on what's going on the outside. And yeah, I really adore Inside Out very much. And For me, yeah, that would be my pair. I was also thinking of the movie. Oh my God, is it Huge? What's the little girl who takes a little pig guy? She rescues him and they try to stop the factory. Um,
This
oh my
animated movie?
gosh, no, it's I'm sorry, it's live action. It's a live action with I think an animated little pig guy. I think it's like Hugie or Fuji. Um,
About a live action movie about a girl who rescues a pig?
it's some. Oh my gosh.
I mean, the two
Um,
Babe movies could be
I
good
can't
double
think of it.
features, like the Babe
Babe would be a good
films,
one. Yeah.
especially the first one from '95 would be a nice pairing because there's some similarities there. The pig's not as annoying in Babe.
No, I like Babe. Oh, Okja.
Oh, right. Okja with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes,
I saw that
Okja.
once
That
on
would be.
Netflix. That was an interesting film. Yeah, yeah.
It was very interesting. Yeah, I think that could. I mean, that's more so because of the
Director of
relationship
Parasite, right?
between.
Isn't that the director of
I
Parasite? That
believe so. Yes.
Bong Joon Ho.
Um.
That Bong Joon
Okja.
Ho who directed Oak. I think he made that right before Parasite.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, Okja. I think that could be a good one. I mean, it's much darker. But it's relationship between a girl and an animal that she kind of
that's a
bonds
good.
with,
I
and
like that.
um it goes into the whole like meat industry. I think it's like a girl. I think yeah, she goes more of an adventure to try to stop like the overall industry of animal slaughter, and
Okay,
I think yeah, that'd be a good one too.
that'd
If
be
you
a
want to
good
go
one for
cute, go with
adults.
Inside
Yeah.
Out. Yes, yeah, it's basically the adult Charlotte's Web. Honestly, let's be honest.
Trying to imagine an adult listening to us right now being like, all right, let me take Brian and Andrew's picks for a double feature with 1973's Charlotte's Web.
So
What do
what's
I
yours?
pair with this? So I was like, what's an animated film of the last decade about an animal that's at least in part on a farm that I liked? And the one that came to mind was Ferdinand from 2017, also
Oh
2017,
yeah,
which I thought was really charming. Not a Disney movie, like Charlotte's
it's
Web,
not
not a
Disney.
Disney film. I don't feel like that one has had as long of a shelf life as some of the other Disney films of the last 15 years. And I saw that with my oldest nephew when it came out. And it was really charming and I liked it. I haven't seen it since, but that like just in terms of its like setting, location, the animals, like that could be kind of an interesting double feature to look at like what animation was like in the 70s versus the 2010s and kind of compare the stories. That could be kind of fun. Did you
Okay,
see
yeah, I think that'd
Ferdinand?
be yeah. I have seen Ferdinand. Yes, I had. It's funny because I was discussing it with my roommate yesterday because we were talking about in Charlotte's Web, the 73, how Fern knows the names and knows the situations going on with the animal. Then they just kind of glanced over that. They didn't really like go into can she talk to animals? How does she understand them? This is interesting.
Yeah.
They glance over it and they low key do that in Ferdinand as well, where somehow like, he names himself Ferdinand, like they come up with the name, and then he gets lost, and then she finds him, and she knows that his name is Ferdinand. I'm like, wait,
Mm.
how does she know his name is Ferdinand? It makes no sense to me. Like, I mean, it's a kids movie. I'll let it pass. I was
Yeah.
like, how does she know his name is Ferdinand when she can't talk to him? Like she can't talk to animals, but she knows his name. So that was that was I always think of that from Ferdinand. I'm like, God, Andrew, that's your issue with the movie was that's ridiculous.
That's what
But
made your rating drop by 7 points.
it did. It made it go. It wasn't John Cena the voice of Ferdinand.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. No, that's funny. That's also that's kind of interesting.
It's kind of a fun
Choice
choice.
of
I mean, it's hard to like, what do you really pair Charlotte's Web with? So it's like there's not
exactly.
in some ways I feel like the most obvious pairing would be with the '06 version, and then you could watch the
Yes.
two. I might have said that. Sometimes I do say the remake, but I have not seen the '06. I have to have seen it. So I haven't seen it. I thought
Okay.
about watching it and I was like,
It'd
I
be
don't,
good.
I'm good.
I feel like it would be interesting to see any changes in this. I mean, the only
Yeah,
change I remember was the Templeton thing.
right.
But which I
They
preferred
don't let
in
Charlotte
the
live at
first.
the end of the '06. Like she's not like
They don't
singing
not
and dancing with Wilbur.
no. Julia Roberts dies.
Does does the main girl age at all, or do we see older Fern?
I don't remember. Honestly, I low key want to watch it again just to compare the two for fun. Um, I don't think she
Dakota
ages at all.
Fanning,
I
right?
think,
You said Dakota Fanning is the
yeah,
girl.
yeah,
Like
Dakota
they don't
Fanning.
like
Yeah,
they don't like dress her up or anything.
I don't believe so. No, I think they keep her the same age,
Does she
and they
fall in
just
love with a
kind of.
boy? Does she go to
I
like the?
don't
Does
remember.
she go like to go on a like to the carnival with the boy?
I don't remember that
Hold
either.
hands.
I all the clips I was watching just to like remind myself of that movie. None of them featured Dakota Fanning, unfortunately. They were all about the animals. Um, which surprisingly, 2006, the animation for like for the animals when they had to do it looked really good.
It looks pretty good. It's all computer animation of
Yeah,
the pig, and
yeah.
is the pig animated?
Well, I think it's a mix of
It's a mix
animated
of a
and not.
real pig. Okay.
Because I mean, Charlotte's very completely animated. I know. I think something with CGI in this animation now, when they try to make it look lifelike, when they add too much detail, I feel like it doesn't look lifelike. I'm like,
Oh,
when
okay.
there's too much, it's too touchy. It's like Jurassic Park, like the OG Jurassic Park, because they don't have to stylize every last detail.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It looks normal. It looks how I think it would probably look in real life. Like with the new dinosaurs, they had a new one. Like they show like every little thing on them. I'm just like, and when you add, in my opinion, when you add that much, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, I was on Twitter today, and uh, someone had liked this thing about when it comes to animation and like teeth, because uh, artists when they make teeth and if they draw or animate it, they don't show all the teeth. They don't show all the detail because it's too distracting. It makes it look not lifelike. Because like I'm smiling right now, you don't see each. You just see more so just the
Yeah.
white, and you see every now and then an indentation and stuff like that. And so, um, it's interesting. It's like less detail makes it look more realistic because that's how your eyes would see it in general. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think it's with some of the CGI stuff now, like in 2006, Wilbur and the stuff looks better than I think it would look today because they were trying to make it look
Oh, okay.
super cool and super detailed, but it takes you out of it because it looks too done. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because this Charlotte looked pretty good in 2006. I mean, it's totally animated looking spider, but it's cute. It doesn't take away from it. You can believe it's a real spider for some reason. So
Yeah. No, those are all great choices, and Okja would be an interesting double
okay, yeah,
feature choice with
why not?
Charlotte's Web.
It's basically what
Someone
adult
do it.
version.
Someone do it. Write in. Tell us how it went. All
I
right.
watch
So
it
our
tonight. It's on Netflix.
yeah, it's on Netflix. Our final segment, Beyond the Flick. This is Debbie Reynolds' last acting job of any kind until the 80s. So this might be the only time we talk about her. I thought we'd end with a little segment about her career. So your knowledge of Debbie Reynolds in your life has been Halloween Town, like that's where you know her from. So tell me about that.
Yes, Halloween Town, and a little. I know she was in Will and Grace as well.
Will and Grace. She's very funny on Will and
She
Grace.
played, yes. Oh yeah, so I loved her in Halloween Town because I think whenever they were advertising it on TV, they always advertised starring Debbie Reynolds. That meant nothing to me, but it
Mm.
meant something to my parents, which got them to watch it because they love Debbie Reynolds. And oh my gosh, she is so. She plays Aggie. Oh my gosh, what is their last name? Cromwell, Aggie Cromwell. Um, and she is just the ultimate grandmother that is so sweet, and her voice is just so she's so lovely. And I loved her. Like she's such a comforting character. She felt like she was just my grandmother on screen, and it's hard not to just love her in it. Um,
So what's the
and
basic premise of
she
the first movie? Is it like she turns out to be a witch? What's
yes.
the premise of the
So
first
what?
movie?
So the premise of Halloween Town, the first one, is that there is a family in the normal mortal world.
Okay.
It's a single mother with her three kids, and it's Halloween, and their grandmother comes into town. The grandmother comes on a flying bus from Halloween Town, and basically the kids kind of learn that they are from a family of witches. So the oldest daughter, Kimberly J. Brown, who I met last year, who was lovely to meet. She is the oldest. She finds out she's a witch, and she has always been really interested in the witchy thing. So she and her siblings sneak off to the bus that's taking off to Halloween Town.
Okay.
So they follow their grandmother out, and they go to Halloween Town, and basically Halloween Town's being taken over by some evil force, and they try to help their grandmother defeat it. But their grandmother's also like, no, I got to get you guys home. We can hang around for a little bit because the time works differently in Halloween Town. And so, yeah, they're just trying to, they're all witches. It's like, yeah, they're discovering their powers, and it's really great. And the Halloween Town 2 is super good. Actually, I sometimes like it more than the first one. The story's pretty good. It's a very good story. The original cast is back in it, and there's also a third one, Halloween Town High. And Debbie Reynolds is in that one as well. She becomes a teacher in that one at the high school, and they do like a foreign exchange program. Because Debbie Reynolds is very involved in each of the movies, which I really like. Not the fourth one. I think they changed in the fourth one. They changed the lead actress. That just it was not the same. And so Debbie Reynolds was hardly in it. She wasn't even physically in it. It looked like,
so I could just watch the first two. I could just watch the first two,
yeah,
and call it good.
Just watch the first two, yeah. And also, what's really cute is that in the second one, the guy that Kimberly J. Brown is like interested in, they're married now in real life.
Oh, okay.
Which is so they met on that set, but they didn't like have anything. Like they weren't like dating on the set, but they reconnected at like a Comic-Con thing, and now they are married, which is kind of cute.
It always annoys me when they make the sequels when they have a different actor playing like the mom or the dad. Have you ever watched the Air Bud series?
Yes.
Every single, there's like 6 of them. They're all a different mom.
Yeah,
but often the kids, it's like Kevin Zegers. What's that? Like it's like the same kid in the first 4, but every movie he has a different mom, all called the same name. Which I always like. If you watch them over a weekend, like, wouldn't kids start to get confused? Like, boy, that dad is just remarrying. So that happens later on in Halloween Town.
Yes, but Debbie Reynolds is in all of them, but she's hard in the fourth one. But yeah, first 2 she's really great in.
Part 4, she said, "You got to pay me."
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's fun to see her in them. I mean, that's pretty much the last things I remember her in, like this, as a full, as a main character and throughout the entire film. So I would watch it just to see her because she is so good. She's so good.
But you haven't seen her in anything else? Like that's the only films you know her from?
That's pretty much the only thing I really know her from is that. That was what I grew up on.
Have you heard of a film called Singin' in the Rain?
I've never seen it, but of course I know.
Okay, so you have 2 pieces of homework. Okay,
I need to learn about.
Singin' in the Rain is one of the great films of the 50s. It is spectacular. Yes. I did not see it till college. Saw it on they played it at I think it was a screening near my college, and I was like, I've never seen this. I've heard it's a great musical. Let's check it out. And it blew me away. It's great. Okay, it's really fantastic. Okay. And she's the female lead of the movie. It's the main character of the film is played by Gene Kelly, but Debbie Reynolds, I think it's like her 3rd or 4th film. And it was really the movie that like gave her a huge boost to her career. Because not that the movie overperformed, it was actually, I think, kind of a flop at the time, but it was her first like really big role in a movie, and it got her some attention. And then throughout the 50s, she's in a ton of stuff, leading all the way to her, I believe I have to maybe double check, I think it's her only Oscar nomination for The Unsinkable Molly Brown from 1964, which is another film I saw a few years ago. I think I watched it after she passed away, right? Remember that at the very end of 2016, Carrie Fisher died so tragically. And then I believe
she died the next day.
Debbie Reynolds died the next day, or was it 2 days later, something like that? It was like right after.
Yeah.
Like, she died of a broken heart. Like that was so sad. I cried first when I heard that Carrie Fisher had died, because I love her, and then Debbie Reynolds is her mother passing away right after, and that it was just from like this broken heart of losing her daughter, and she just said, "I'm done, I'm out," and that was so tragic. Apparently
she said, I need to go be with Carrie.
I need to go be with Carrie.
apparently that's something that she said while she was this morning, and
because I feel like you see that in storytelling sometimes, maybe even animation, this idea that you can just like will yourself to die, but it doesn't ever seem like that could actually happen in reality in our own lives, that you could just be like, I'm in such horrific grief, I'm just going to kind of will myself to go. And somehow Debbie Reynolds managed that at the end of 2016. But what a career she had, going all the way back to, I believe it's the late 1940s. Her one and only Oscar nomination is The Unsinkable Molly Brown. Same year as we said earlier, Julie Andrews wins that year for Mary Poppins. But so I don't think she was ever going to beat Julie Andrews. But it's a great movie, great performance, really lovely. So many films she made in the 50s I've never seen. I'll have to catch up on those. But your homework, Andrew, Singing in the Rain is lovely. It's so great. Check that out. And then her 1996 comedy with Albert Brooks called Mother is hilarious. Have you heard of this movie?
Okay. I saw Mother from Jennifer Lawrence.
A lot of movies are called Mother. It gets confusing. This is kind of like a studio comedy Christmas release from the end of 1996. And Albert Brooks is a novelist, and he's losing his mojo, Andrew. He's like, just not, the writing's not coming. He's struggling. His his relationships with women are out of whack. He's like, nothing's working for this guy. So he decides, I'm going to go move back in with my mother and live with her for a few weeks and see if maybe that will somehow get me out of my funk. This is like, he's like in his late 40s, early 50s in the movie. And Debbie Reynolds, I think, is playing 60s, 70s, something like that. And it's just like, from minute one, they kind of clash, and she's of a certain, she thinks a certain way, he thinks a certain way, and they don't quite get along very well. And it's very, very funny. I thought Debbie Reynolds was worthy of an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Okay. It's like a really great, and it was kind of a return to form for Debbie Reynolds. She had been out of the limelight for many years. Like, she wasn't doing a whole lot of acting, and she came back for Mother from 96, and then a year later, she's in and Out with Kevin Kline. She's the mom of Kevin Kline in the gay comedy In and Out from 97, which is a certain movie of its time. There's some things that maybe are a little questionable now, but I really enjoy it at the time. And so, yeah, Mother and Singing in the Rain are my top two for her. And then I'd also put Unsinkable Molly Brown, which is worthy viewing for her Oscar nomination.
Well, I think it would be interesting to see. I mean, I've only known Debbie Reynolds as Aggie Cromwell, so I think it is kind of fun to see what they did early on.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mother would have been right before Halloween Town, so you'll recognize her look. I think will be pretty similar.
Okay,
because isn't Halloween Town like 98? I think.
Yes.
And Mother is 96, so it's like right around that same time. Singing in the Rain, you won't recognize her. She's very young.
No, I saw clips of it when I was looking at stuff about Charlotte's Web, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's her!" Like, I would never guess.
And then one quick shout out to her final acting role, at least in like a feature film, 2013's Behind the Candelabra with with Michael Douglas and Matt Damon. Like, she has a scene or two in the film with prosthetics. She's the one with like the big nose. And was it Liberace's mom? Was that the role she played in that? But she's in a couple scenes, and it's a really great brief cameo supporting role in that movie. And that was her last big acting job. And it's like a really great final one. Like, I really was taken with that film overall. Steven Soderbergh's movie. Michael Douglas is amazing in that movie. And Debbie Reynolds has a brief role in it, and it's great. And that's her last thing she did. So I like that too.
Well, and I don't know if you look at her granddaughter, Billie Lourd, who I love. She's such a great actress. I'm really interested to see where her career goes. Because I love Billie Lourd. She's so good. I know she's deep into Ryan Murphy stuff right now.
Yeah, she's very much of a Ryan Murphy gal. That's how I think of
it. And I think also I had this feel for when she lost her mom and her grandmother just back
in the same week.
Just, oh my god, I can't. And well, she just had a baby too. I think Billie Lord just had a kid. Yeah, yes, she did because she she was pregnant during the filming of this new American Horror Story, um, and which is not that great, but
Yeah, I watched the
I
first
could.
episode and it had a lot of eye candy, so I need to go back.
It is, and it's honestly, yeah, that's. I, it started off pretty good. I'm just like over Ryan Murphy's whole thing with let's just put a bunch of hot it's a bunch of hot white gay men getting murdered. And I'm just like, okay, like maybe they deserve it a little bit. Like they're just no, like it was a little annoying. We're just like, this is just
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy's fantasy of muscular men. That's all he wants on film.
I
And
don't I don't know how
it
much
was
Ryan
honestly,
Murphy's a part of it anymore, honestly.
yeah, and I know,
He's probably not even
I don't know how
really
involved.
overseeing it.
Probably not as much. Watching it, you're just like it's almost overwhelming. Just like why, like it's just all very hot men, and it's like it's a little annoying to be honest. It's like this is just this is not very realistic, uh, but it's also focusing. I don't know. It's queer men in the I guess the 80s, um,
Yeah.
and how like we're being attacked. We're awful, awful. Oh, poor us. And then it's like they barely focus on like the queer people of color at all. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple characters that like get they can either get murdered or get horribly disfigured, and it's like this is it feels outdated. And
But
I
yeah,
think the it's not
Billy
really
Lord is very talented. I liked her in. We
yeah.
just watched the other night. It was okay. Ticket to Paradise with Julia Roberts and George Clooney. But
Oh,
I
I
was like,
watched
oh,
that too. Yeah.
I said, have I seen Billy Lord in a movie? Like, I feel like I've only seen her on Ryan Murphy shows. So it was nice to see her in a movie, and she had some good scenes in that. So I'm waiting for like her
Yeah,
breakout like lead role in an indie film. Like,
I
I just watched
know.
Emily the Criminal the other night
Oh
with
yeah, it was
Aubrey
great.
Plaza, which was fantastic. Like that's
So
the kind
good.
of role I'd love to see Billy Lord do. Like where she just
Yeah.
gets like it's not like a big movie, it's like an indie film, but show more of what she can do as an actress, like in a lead role in a small movie would be cool. I would love to see that.
Did you ever see Booksmart?
Is she in Booksmart?
She is in Booksmart.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I saw Booksmart once. It's very good. I can't remember Billy Lord in it.
She wasn't in it a ton, but she was the funny girl, the sister of the rich guy, who was she was wild and crazy, and she's great. She's so funny in it. I
Oh, cool.
loved
Yeah,
it.
that was a great movie. That was Olivia Wilde's best film for sure. So
Oh yeah.
far over Don't Worry,
Oh yeah.
Darling. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, Billy Lord. I always it's very just it's I don't even know if they put a lot of thought into it, but I love that Debbie Reynolds, her first name's got the two B's, and then Carrie's name has the two
Two
R's, and
R's.
then
Yeah.
Billy's name has the two L's, and all
Hmm.
three of their names are 6 letters long. Like that can't
Huh.
have been a coincidence, right?
I don't think.
Debbie,
I mean, I never
Carrie,
thought of it, but
Billy.
that makes sense.
And then
It's their
Carrie
legacy now.
Fisher's name is her famous dad, Eddie Fisher, her last
I
name.
wonder.
And then
I wonder what Billy's
and then Billy Lord, her not as famous. He's not an actor. He's a agent, I think, a Brian Lord and from CAA. So she took
Hmm.
her dad's last name of Lord, and like you think that like Carrie Fisher or Billy Lord, like they might have taken their more famous like mom's last name, but they didn't. Which I think that's kind of cool too.
It's and I just looked it up, and her. I was thinking, well, I wonder if she carried this legacy that on, but I think her kid's name is Kingston.
Kingston, and then I read she just had a baby girl, but I didn't see a name.
Oh, I love, yeah, I love Billy Lord. I think she is very, very talented. Of course, we're in this whole. I'm sure you're on Twitter. The whole nepo
I
baby
am.
thing
Oh, the
and
Nepo baby.
all the nepo baby, talk and all that stuff. I was like, you know what, Billy Lord's a fantastic actress. I was like, I know a lot of actors have commented on it and about
My feeling about that is
also,
like, yes, that
yeah.
helps. That would be huge. If my dad or someone close to me had been a famous filmmaker, it might have been easier for me when I was in LA to like get work and like maybe. But I think at the end of the day, it's like you need to have the talent and work really hard. And if you don't have it, Like, it doesn't matter if you have all of these famous people in your life. At a certain point, it'll come up to nothing. Like, if you don't actually have the talent, it just
Yeah,
helps kind of get you in the room.
it
That's a
does. Yeah,
big
it gets
part
you in
of
the
it.
room. Yeah, but like in like I've always loved Billy Lord and what she's in, and I'm happy that she's getting a pretty good career. And I mean, it's kind of nice to see like, oh, like that's Debbie Reynolds' granddaughter, that's Carrie Fisher's daughter. Like
Yeah,
it's,
they're
oh
still
no,
in a little
it
bit
creates
alive in a
something.
way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's sweet. Like their legacy is somewhat still living on, and maybe Billy Lord will get in. Like she was in Star Wars, and it's kind of it's nice to see her in Star Wars because her mother was
That
in it,
she
and
got on her own. That I don't think Billy Lord, I think Billy Lord got into Star Wars without the help of her mom, right?
yeah, maybe,
that
maybe I don't
that
know.
she's only in that movie because her
Of
mom is
course.
Carrie
Oh yeah,
Fisher. That's not even a
very
question.
good. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
Well,
like, we
if
can,
they had any sequels, yeah,
Ryan Murphy can be like, okay, this is Carrie Fisher's daughter, Billy Lord. Let's bring her on to American Horror Story for a season. And if she didn't have the talent, if she like it, they wouldn't keep her on. She wouldn't keep going because she's very good and she's very charismatic, and she can she always brings something unique to a scene and anything she's doing. That's what's keeping her as a very good working actress. If she
for
was just
sure.
brought on for one season of the show just as like a stunt, like, oh, this is Carrie Fisher's daughter, like, we would have seen
Yeah,
through that and been like, she's okay, she's not anything special, but she's great,
I
so
agree.
it works out.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at like Paris Jackson, Michael Jackson's daughter. Like I've seen her and stuff. I'm just like, and she's not a good actress in any way. She's Michael Jackson's daughter, but I'm just like, they don't people aren't using her anymore, and it's yeah, I agree.
Like
I
you
think
said, you watched House of Wax, right?
yes,
Like Paris Hilton, that's a very good example of someone
exactly.
who got that movie because of, like, well, I mean, she was semi-famous by '05, but like, does she bring any talent or charisma to that performance?
Nope,
Have we seen her in
nope.
much in movies
We
after
haven't.
that? No.
No, exactly. Yeah,
Like,
no.
if you
And so
don't have
it
it,
fades out.
like, she's doing just fine, and then she goes on to other things and is extremely successful in those enterprises. But when it comes to like being a film actress, I feel like when you get those opportunities because of who you know and blah blah blah, like, you get a couple chances, and if you just don't have it, then you go do other stuff. you know
Yeah,
so
I agree.
anyway, I said, man, Andrew and I talk for a long time often, but this little animated film, this will be a short one. And we're at 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours,
But hey, that's how we
well,
roll
what
here
we
at Film
talk.
at 50.
Yeah, that's how we do it. We love animated movies.
Yeah, it was fun to finally talk animation with you. And as we wrap up here, our chat about Charlotte's Web, like, tell our listeners where they can find you online.
Yeah, so I'm I mean all over social media, AR Campbell 94. And yeah, I am on Letterbox as well. I watch movies all the time. So Letterbox, I don't even update anything. But yeah, I love movies, and I always rate them on Instagram and on Letterbox. So if you want to see what movies I like, go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, I always like your Instagram posts when you have it, just when you have, like, you give it a rating like 7 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, and you give like a very brief review with like a picture or two of them film. Like, I like the way you review movies on Instagram. It's just very visually, it like grabs me when I see it. It's nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because I mean,
Even
I
when I
think
disagree. Like,
what you didn't
what?
like Disenchanted?
Oof.
Well, it's funny. I think because I have like other friends, they know the whole depth thing. I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like with film, I just if I enjoy it, I enjoy it, and like why did I enjoy it? Oh, here are 3 things I like. I'm like, okay, that's it. Like
Mhm.
I don't dive too deep into things usually, but yeah, I'm happy that
I saw Scream 5 on your top 10 and I didn't say anything.
I know you did it. Thank you so much.
But yeah, it's always
I
a blast
mean,
to have you on Film at 50, Andrew. We'll sure talk again. We got lots of really cool 1973 titles coming up here, including in April, A Month of Terror. We're talking 4 horror films that month, so maybe we can get you on for that.
yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for being here. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com or on Twitter and Instagram. Check out my YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video, for all things Oscars. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.